call. Ready? Okay. Let's call the meeting to order. 4:03, 4:05 now.
This is the meeting of the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force for March 7th, 2018, and to time of 4:05.
Present.
Eldon present. Member Josh Wolf. Wolf absent. He will be. He did inform us he would be here slightly late.
Okay.
Copra absent. Member Tesfa.
Present.
Tesfa present. Member Moss. Moss did
Excused.
inform us. Excused.
Excuse.
Member Kanata.
Here.
Kanata present. Member Fisher. Member Fisher should be here within the half hour.
Okay.
Member Hinsey.
Present.
Hinsey present. Vice Chair Hyland.
Present.
Hyland present. Chair Wolf.
Present.
Wolf present. We have a quorum.
Thank you.
There are no agenda changes that I know of.
Okay. Members, any changes to the agenda? Okay. Seeing none. Next item.
Next on the agenda, item number 2, approval of minutes for the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force February 7, 2018 meeting.
Any changes, adjustments to the minutes or a motion?
Yeah, move to approve. Second.
Moved by Member Kanata, second by Member Hinsey. Any public comment on the minutes? Seeing no public comment, can we take this by acclamation? Seeing no objection, item is approved.
That motion is passed with members Wolf, Copra, Moss, and Fisher not being present. Next on the agenda, item number 3, file number 17129, complaint filed by Patrick Roddy against the Department of Public Health for allegedly violating Administrative Code, Section 67.21, by failing to respond to a public records request in a timely and/or complete manner. This matter was continued from our last meeting on February 7, 2018, and I believe the parties were asked to review documents found by the member of the task force to see if it would satisfy the request.
Okay, great.
Additional documents have been submitted by both parties.
They have?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so this is more or less are we now in compliance? Did everybody get what they wanted?
I don't
And can we
believe there is
close?
satisfaction.
They're
at
not
this time.
okay, so Mr. Roddy, let's hear from you first.
We meet again. Apologies for having this take so long. Like I said, I'm trying to find out how many more people died on days with heavy spraying. And the Department of Public Health are hiding behind a state law, which has been, I consider, doesn't apply. It applies to comprehensive records. I'm not asking for comprehensive records. I'm asking for the existence of records. And after the last meeting, I asked the custodian of record to check with council, with the city and the state to see if that law applied. I haven't had any communication back from them. So I decided to take a different tack. If it is ruled that state records are off limits, and I should recap why the state records are insufficient. On the application for California public use birth and death files, Section 7 says, all vital records data received will be destroyed or returned upon completion of the project. That means it will be unable to be peer reviewed, it is worthless, and I won't be able to quote, like on such and such a day, so many people died of X, because that's the record, and I can't even use it. According to their rules, it is absolutely worthless. So I thought, okay, I'll do a bit of research, find out how information about deaths travels through in between city departments. So what happens is, when somebody dies, a paramedic or a doctor can declare a death. That gets filed to another city department, the coroner. So I sent out 5 new Sunshine Ordinance requests to the Fire Department, Police, Department of Emergency Management, and also to the Department of Public Health. From the Fire Department and the Police Department, I want reports from first responders to Central Dispatch of each death. From the coroner, I want the dates and times of when people were reported dead, for as far back as they have them. And with Department of Public Health, I've asked them for the dates and times of deaths in the medical facilities they administer, which include San Francisco General, Laguna Honda, and Managed Care. I send them out by certified mail on the 28th. And as you can see, this is the signed thing that came back. Fire Department, Police Department, Department of Emergency Management, and the Chief Medical Examiner accepted it. Department of Public Health refused service. They wouldn't even take the thing, which was a little disturbing. Fortunately, because when I filed this public information, it got CC'd to them, so they had it in their possession. And 2 hours ago, I got a note saying, we received your public records request, and we're invoking a 14-day extension on Government Code Section 6253C, which I believe is outside the San Francisco Sunshine Ordinance. So it's getting stonewalled still. I'm pretty disappointed. I did not want to irritate 4 other departments, but I was left no choice. All I wanted, I am doing a public health service. I want to see if there's an epidemic in process. And to still be told, by the Department of Public Health, we're not going to even tell you if someone died, I find absolutely egregious. And I'm not sure what can be done. I think my next step is going to be contacting General Counsel of the state and the city to see legally must the department cough up this data, because they can supply it, but they won't. And also, secondly, I checked the coroner's website, and on the coroner's website, they say that funeral homes file deaths with the Department of Public Health. It's on their website, and that is in direct contradiction of what we were told in this hearing. So that's where I am so far.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Respondent, Department of Public Health.
Good afternoon. I am Linda Acosta from the Public Health Department. And I would like to start by reading Health and Safety. This is California Health and Safety Code that prevents us from giving this data out. And, this is, I think, our 5th time here. Believe me, I would love to give this data out, but I cannot. And here's why. So it's, do you want to know all the numbers of it? It's yes, Division 102, Vital Records and Health Statistics, 102.175 to 102.249. And it's, specifically Section 102.230, number 2. The birth, death, marriage record indices prepared. Let me start over. The birth, death, and marriage.
Hold on a second. It's 102.230A, number 2.
Is that A2?
A2.
Thank you.
Just for everybody's education.
Yeah, it's formatted strangely on my printout, but thank you.
Continue.
So it's A2, the birth, death, and marriage record indices prepared pursuant to paragraph 1, and all comprehensive birth, death, and marriage record indices prepared or maintained by local registrars and county recorders shall be kept confidential and shall be exempt from disclosure under the California Public Records Act. So I interpret that, and the city attorney interprets that as we can't give it out. As for Mr. Roddy mentioned a certified letter being delivered. I'm not sure who it was delivered to. I would not have refused it, but we did get his request through email, and we are working on that right now.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, members.
I have a question.
Member testify.
Thank you. I have a question for Mr. Roddy.
Hey there.
Hi. Do you have any specific response to Ms. Acosta's reference to Health and Safety Code 102230? I mean, earlier
Absolutely.
you spoke more in generalization, so if you could give us some type of specific case law that interpreted that section differently from the way the department is interpreting it, or...
Well, last time, the key word is comprehensive. Comprehensive means in whole or largely. That is the Merriam-Webster definition. Black's Law doesn't define that, so that we have to go with Merriam-Webster. I'm not looking for the comprehensive record, so that section does not apply. And Ms. Acosta mentioned the city attorney had agreed with her. I've had no communication with the city attorney. I'd like to see that in writing. I just have her word that the city attorney said so. All I have is her word that, oh, this applies, and she's not a lawyer. And comprehensive is comprehensive. I'm not looking for comprehensive records. I'm not even looking at the contents of the records. I'm just looking for the existence of the records. And considering that the county coroner says that death certificates are in fact filed with the Department of Public Health, that needs to be cleared up, and also the fact that the three, you got San Francisco General, Managed Care, and Laguna Honda, and the Department of Public Health is aware that they have access to the fact that those deaths were filed, and in the Sunshine Ordinance law, the custodian of record must present any information and help me get this information, and clearly neglected to do that. I don't know if that's negligence, willful, or otherwise. So this is clear stonewalling. But back to your point, comprehensive, absolutely not. That rule does not apply. Not looking for the entire indices, and it is not comprehensive, so it does not apply. And I haven't got case law.
Anyone else? Mr. Roddy, I'd like to ask you a question. So, and I may have asked this before,
Sure.
but if you're not looking for the actual indices, if you're not looking for the actual records, the actual documents,
Right.
and you're looking for just a response that they exist, how would you like to receive that response? I mean, just a simple letter, email?
I would like the dates.
How do you expect it to be?
The dates and times of each death recorded.
But that's not asking if they exist. That's asking for actual recordings.
The dates of them. I mean, or even how many per day. Any way I can get how many per day. I mean, I'm not violating HIPAA. I mean, at first, like I said, it started off, I wanted all information, and then I got stonewalled, and I said, okay, start with the existence of the records, how many per day, and once I can get that, then I can ask for as much as I can get, because ultimately I'd like to find a cause of death as well, and be able to have this reproducible and peer-reviewed. And the state does not allow such a thing. It would be worthless data.
Okay. So you would be looking for, well, let's put it this way. If there isn't a document that already exists that shows, let's say, a log, okay, then that would cause the agency to have to create a brand new document. They're not required to do that unless you want to pay them for it.
If you have an iPhone and you go to your address book and you type in John.
But this is not that.
These are electronic records, and they are all stored in databases, and it's at one database query you can pull up all records.
Yeah, right. But then the question is are they creating a record? I don't know how they keep these records. I don't know if they're in a database or if they're all in paper.
In my request, I specifically asked only for electronic records.
Right. So if they don't have them and they're not existing, they don't exist, the ordinance doesn't require them to produce it unless you want to pay for it.
Well, the most recent one that I've put in, asking for data from San Francisco General, Laguna Honda, and Managed Care. A hospital will know how many beds they have, how many light bulbs they bought. It's inventory management. They do inventory management for people as well.
But this isn't the same kind of database. In that way, I mean, they know how much there is. The question is, can a report be printed out? That's one question that we could ask. But if a report cannot be printed out, then and they got to create a brand new document. There's not a requirement for them to create a document that doesn't exist in format. So if it's just numbers on a screen, okay, I guess could do a screenshot. But if that reveals any information, then they'd have to do due diligence and redact.
With any database, you put in a query, you put in your search terms, and you ask it to return the specified fields. This would be one query. Save it out to tab delimited or XLS. That's it. Put on a thumb drive. I'm happy. I'd be happy to pay them for 5 minutes of their work. Sure. A database is a database. All electronic records that are stored are in effectively a database, including the addresses on your phone. And the fact that we are finding that if funeral homes are filing records with the department, that is at odds with the testimony we've heard today. So, is that also the case for San Francisco General? That remains to be seen. But the facilities themselves will have records, and like I said, I am expanding this to avoid having to deal with the state because that is toxic. It's worthless information. I'm going for interdepartmental communication. So from paramedics, first responders, coroners, back and forth. And now, as it's the new information that I found is that the files are transmitted from funeral homes, at least. So there is something. The Department of Public Health has something, but they're not telling.
I'm not going to debate what happens in other arenas. Okay, that's what happens in those arenas. Lots of people use different kinds of software, different kinds of platforms. So let me ask the respondent a couple of questions regarding this to see if we can move this along a little bit.
Thank you.
And feel free, members, if you have anything pops up for you. Two questions. One is, it sounds like the information that Mr. Roddy is asking for is not the actual records. And he's not asking to see any of the details in the records or the actual records themselves, but just wants a number of how many there are within certain periods of time. Is that something that you can provide?
So if you read further on into that 102230 under number 3, and you go about 5 lines down, you get to a government agency that obtains these indices shall not sell or release the index or a portion of its contents to another person except as necessary for official government business.
Okay, so he's not asking for anything around indices.
Any portion of that record is how I interpret that.
Okay, so what about 102231? Notwithstanding any other law, birth data files for public release, death data files for public release, death data files for purposes of law enforcement or preventing fraud, and non-confidential marriage data files. These are not indices. These are actual files prepared and maintained by the state registrar. Local registrars and county recorders shall only be released as follows. And there's a whole list. Birth data files, death data files.
Shall be released by the state.
No, it does not say the state. These are files that are to be for public release that are maintained either by state registrar, local registrar, and county recorders. And it gives a whole list under 102231, the next part.
Well, I don't have 102231, but what I do have is an email from the state saying I'm forbidden to release this information, and I gave the state from CDPH the exact nature of what he was requesting. And then I also have on the website of the California Health and Safety Code, I think I also submitted another document that says that all data requests need to go through the state, and that's because they maintain strict control over the data, and that's the truth, and I can't give the data out.
Well, I'm just reading what the law says here. There's a very different, one section, the 102230 deals with indices, okay? That's controlled by the state. So
And can you define what indices is? This isn't something that I deal with.
I don't
every day.
know.
Right.
That's something that I kind of would think you would know.
I would think it would be records, right?
I don't know. I would think indices are listings of records, but it's a one-way. In the way I read it in 102230, it's a one-way transmission from local to state, and then the state controls what gets reported back.
Right.
So the actual the actual files themselves, like the actual birth certificate, doesn't get sent upstate.
Right.
Okay. What do you send upstate?
And I think you may have not been in this room when we discussed this previously,
Okay.
but we basically go into, it's called the California Death Reporting System. It's
Okay.
a database. We go in and we basically check some boxes and say this
Okay.
is complete. But
So-
we never have a report.
Okay.
We never have any physical copies of that.
Okay. So those recordings, I believe, is what an index is. Indices is just plural for index. So, but you're still holding the actual record. The birth certificate?
Birth
The death certificates?
We,
The city, it may not be the Department of Health, but
Right.
somewhere in the city, some agency or department has those records.
as death certificates, yes.
Birth certificates, death
Yes.
certificates, marriage licenses,
Yes.
and other things like that.
Yes.
So, under 102230 deals with from you entering in that information that goes to the state. State controls that index of records. Okay, if somebody were to call the state and say, I'm looking for a record for so-and-so death certificate. Okay, they would say, yes, we have a record of that. It is available to you on, let's say, they say it's available to you at your local registrar. You can go to whoever the local registrar is here, it could be the clerk, whatever, and ask for that record, and then they would find the appropriate department to get the actual file.
Yes.
Okay. That's 102230. 102231 describes and controls how those files are handled, maintained, managed, the actual physical file. So that's what I'm reading here. It's a very much longer and very much more detailed to the point of birth data files for public release shall not contain the mother's maiden name. Okay?
Right.
So the question here is if these files exist, Mr. Roddy wants to know that they exist, that the actual physical file exists here. How many of them, during what period of time, that kind of thing. He's not specifically asking. So under the indices, I think you're correct under that section. But it doesn't mean that the actual the information, the data, it does not exist and is disallowed from being released. The information that the state has is disallowed from being released by the local.
Well, the way that the city attorney interprets it and the way that I interpret it from the California
Okay.
Department of Public Health is we're not allowed to give out data, period. Otherwise, I would have given it 4 meetings ago.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Yeah, good. Member Moss.
Yeah. So the reason
Do you need?
I don't need you for the moment, but maybe I will. So the reason I had done a motion to continue last time around is because there was some of the information he was seeking was in the appendices of the San Francisco Community Needs Assessment for 2016, which I'd asked to be included in the packet. It still is in the packet. To me, it is responsive, at least in part, to his request. There seems to be other data that is also available through the San Francisco Health Improvement Partnership, of which San Francisco Department of Public Health is a part of, and there's like little tickers you can select to say, I want to know mortality data for this population, for this disease, for this age group. And it's not, to the letter of what he had asked for, but to me, there seems to be enough overlap that had somebody taken a little bit look and saying, is there anything that we have that meets this criteria, should have come across this. I don't have any questions for that. I think that I just couldn't bring this up. I didn't want to bring this up without it having had a period of time between meetings.
Okay, great. Anybody else? So the ordinance provides for our only so-called enforcement is if we find that documents are public and they're being withheld, and we find that they're being withheld incorrectly, that we can compel the custodian to release them. That's also under the supervisor of records too, which is at the city attorney's office. So I'm not quite sure how to proceed forward with this. I'd like to hear some suggestions. I believe that state law allows for the actual records, physical records, to be released, and there's very specific, in all kinds of ways for all these records. Some need to be redacted, others are not available. Some have to be handled in a certain way. There's a way for them to be posted on the internet. It does say that it shouldn't be posted for public display. So that means, if somebody were to make a request and go into the office and, they were shown the specific record that they were looking for on a screen, that probably would be okay. So just throwing it out there. And taking your, Member Moss, taking your point also that some of this information is now already available publicly. Member Canada?
A question for the respondent. Ma'am. I just want to clarify your reason for not handing it over. Is your reason for not handing it over that the information is not public, or that the state is prohibiting you from giving the records?
The state maintains strict control over the death data, is what I've been told, and I'm not allowed to give it out.
And will the state give it out? Because I
Yes,
believe
absolutely.
Mr. Roddy said the state hasn't even responded to him.
The state will absolutely give it out, and I've given Mr. Roddy the application for it. They'll even give it to the public, so you don't have to be a researcher, but they do have some stipulations around, I guess, when you give it back to them or destroy it. They don't want it, obviously they're trying to control it, they don't want it to go out everywhere.
Mr. Roddy? So for clarification, have you gone to the state? Have they responded to you? What?
The reason I haven't gone to the state is because the data would be worthless. I must destroy it. So they could even censor what my findings are, because if I use data from the index according to their language, I must destroy it. I mean, I'm not sure if they're going to enforce it. This is actually a pretty touchy thing. I'm talking about a covert program that's possibly killing millions. This needs to be done. And actually, I do want to comment. Each hearing that we've been at, we've been told that all the Department of Public Health does is click a box on a state database, and there's no death certificates here. Today we find out they are here. In the ordinance, section 67.21, section C, it reads, "A custodian of public records shall assist a requester in identifying the existence, form, and nature of any records or information maintained by, available to, or in the custody of the custodian," and so on. Basically, it took 5 hearings before we find out there's any death certificates in the city, and now I find this out. Poor form. But like I said, the reason I didn't go through the database was because of that. There's really bad restrictions.
So for your purposes, the state data is useless.
Well, I can do all the work, but then anyone can say, "Oh, that's garbage," and I have no way of responding. It cannot be peer reviewed. It is worthless data.
Okay. And responding again, one more question here. Death certificates, are they in possession of a city department other than the Department of Public Health?
No, I don't believe so.
Okay,
well, the coroner gives some sort of report. Now, I don't actually do this work, so this is all, what I've learned.
But the Department of Public Health has death certificates.
Yes.
You have actual data, hard
we have
physical
death
paper,
so if my father dies tomorrow, I can go in and request his death certificate at the Department of Public Health.
So why can't Mr. Roddy request death certificates?
He can request by name any number he wants, but they cost so much per copy, and you go through that process. And the state tells me I'm not allowed to give data out because they maintain strict control over it. And
right, but that's going to the point Chair Wolf made about the differences between the data. If the city has hard data and it's public data, it's the city's data. So you said that he could go in with names and it costs money, so he can't go in.
And a public copy would be redacted with...
Right, absolutely,
right.
Yeah, the redaction fine.
Sure.
He can't go in with a date range and say, I want all the people that died.
No. Because this CDRS, that we had, the only way that we have anything is we have this database that we go into and tick these boxes on, and it cannot generate any kind of reports.
So how are the death certificates filed with the city?
Something comes to us, we check a box and send it to the state.
That's when you send it to the state.
Yeah.
The city has a physical record.
We have some sort of physical record.
How is that filed? I mean, if it's... I'm trying to visualize.
I think I can rephrase your question. When the coroner fills out a death certificate, is that done hard copy or is it done electronically?
Well, let me find out here. Hold on one second. And I've been trying to bring the actual clerk here who does this work because it would, maybe we'd all be here one time instead of 5 times. So the medical examiner gives not death certificates, but gives work products, including autopsy results, toxicology and lab reports, and findings by investigators. So she's still saying that we don't have a physical death certificate that's walked into us. There are other reports and everything gets put into the death certificate.
So the death certificate itself is a collection of information from various departments?
Yes.
Okay. And who's the custodian of that record?
The state. And so what we do is go in and just check these boxes saying that all of those reports have been completed.
Okay.
And it's called the CDRS. You can look that up.
Okay.
And I think they have actually verbiage on their website around how to get data from them.
So all the information that gets collected, let's just talk about the information collected from the coroner. Mm-hmm. Where is that stored? Not stored in the state.
I don't know where it's stored.
Okay. Does that kind of get to your
Yeah.
point a little
Yeah.
bit? Okay. Mr. Roddy, let me ask you a question. So, what they're saying is the way this information is now managed. So let's say if it was a rural town, not a very big town, didn't have a lot of technology, and they had, everything was done in hard copy. Then that hard copy would be in file cabinets somewhere, and there probably would be a log of how many, where they are, where they're located, that kind of thing, like in a library. Okay, and it would probably be a lot easier to get that information that way. And I'm talking about the information before it goes to the state. The information's held locally. Okay, because according to the law, the way I read it, is that that's what's available publicly. It says for public release. Okay, at the state level, if you want an aggregate of numbers that includes not just the coroner's information, but all kinds of other information, maybe things having to do with police report or all that kind of stuff, that all gets compiled into a death certificate that is compiled by this particular kind of system and goes and is held by the state. The state releases that information. Now, you're free to go to the state. Whether there are problems doing that or not is a different story. But that is an outlet that they have provided you. They've assisted you in finding those records. Okay? Under the Sunshine Ordinance, that's a requirement of a custodian. If they don't have the particular information that you're asking for, but they know where you might be able to find it, or they know exactly where you can find it, it's a requirement for them to assist you. And I believe they've done due diligence in that area. Okay? Now, on the other side of that, looking for records that we do have here locally, okay, seems like that they're contained in different departments, okay? And you're free to go to those departments and ask for that information through them. I can't, if the coroner's office keeps them in hard copy, fine. But they probably have a log somewhere, and they could probably tell you how many they got within a certain period of time verbally and just tell you what that number is.
As you know, I actually have put in 4 different requests to the medical examiner, the Department of Public Health, the Department of Emergency Management, and Fire and Police. It would be good to hear from them to find out what actual interdepartmental communications happen, and it'd be good to find out whether they all do go through the state. If they do go through the state, that'd be fine. I'll be happy.
I understand, but this is not the forum for that. Okay, because we're here to hear about complaints about information that's being withheld.
Which I believe has been, because the simply pointing me towards the state.
Your complaint is against the Department of Health.
Correct.
Okay, and there are certain records that they do have, and there are certain records that they don't have. So the information that they do have, what they believe that you were asking for, was the information coming out of the indices. And those are only held at the state level. Okay,
I was asking for deaths, and they do get information about deaths from different departments. That was not shared with me at all. At some point, yes, things do get entered into the state database, but the stuff before then they could have helped me with instead of just giving me a blank form.
Okay.
I mean, they've partially complied. Go to the state,
But that is a valid response.
It's an incomplete response.
Okay.
It's an inadequate one.
Only if they are restricted from giving out any information. It's a full response.
But I haven't heard anything about they're restricted from telling me communications with other departments like the coroner, with the hospitals, and so on. That wasn't held with at all. It took me doing my own research to find these things even existed.
Okay.
And I find out tonight that the city does keep death records. That's news to me, news to all of us. Why did it take 5 meetings for that to come out?
Well, I don't know, but I mean, okay.
So-
I think it's.
They may be following the letter of the law, which I doubt, but they're certainly not the spirit.
But the question is whether they're able to give you the information that you want. That's what we're coming to.
And
They're
again,
saying that the information they get is aggregate information that they transmit to the state. Okay, and that information is protected.
the state law talks about comprehensive records. I'm not asking for comprehensive records. I'm not looking for the entire indices. Those sections do not apply to my request. Okay. It'd be interesting to find out if the city attorney, what he has to say about it. I'd like to hear that.
Right, let me ask the respondent a question. Costa. If somebody asked for just the specific information, just how many deaths there were, not even actually for the specific records, is that something that you can provide to the public?
If we were able to do that, it would mean us going into the state database and by day creating reports that we don't create and don't know how to create, and I think are not allowed to create.
Do you have any record before you touch a button on a keyboard for the state database? There are any records that are made that are kept locally?
The only that I know of are death certificates that are provided to people, our windows when they request
so
them.
if you have a record of death certificates, so you're saying that death certificates are aggregate information?
Yes.
Okay.
And I don't know that we get a physical copy. I would imagine that they are something that's in that database, is what I've been told, in that database, and we go in and check everything off. So we're not...
How do you know that they exist in order to check it off?
The person who does the work told me that all they do is go into the CDRS, the California Death Records Service, and check these boxes off. And then maybe they're able to print a death certificate from that. I'm not sure how they get their death certificates.
Okay, thank you.
Through the chair.
Member Canada.
So, just for clarification, I'm the clerk. I'm going to the CDRS. What am I looking at? What do I have in front of me in order to know what to enter?
Well, I imagine if you go to a window, you ask for a person's name or their date of death or some other identifier.
I don't get...
How do you know that somebody died?
How do I know that I have something
Exactly.
to enter?
We have reporters that come in all the time and say, we're here for a death. And I say, well, give me a name. Oh, we don't have a name.
No.
Right? Because they've heard of a death happening.
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about a person dies.
Sure.
A clerk is now going to enter information in the CDRS. How does that person know a person has died and what information to enter?
The clerk is not entering that information. The clerk is only saying that the autopsy is done, that the toxicology is done, that the report from the medical examiner is there.
And what records do they have that something was done?
It's in. I've never been into the CDRS, but it's in the CDRS.
Okay, thank you. I want to stop at this point because I think she doesn't know enough to tell us. You kind of mentioned that. You wish that the clerk or the person that manages that were here.
Well, I know that it's not my database, and we don't have reports from it. And it seems to me that
I know, but we're needing to get into the weeds here because we're the petitioner is asking just for numbers. He's not asking for records. Okay, and so. And he's asking for records that are not necessarily applicable to the state records. They're applicable maybe to local records, and that information could be available. But if you're not able to tell us whether or not that is, then it would be preferable to have the person who does know.
She has told me how it works, and I've said this here a few times, that we enter our information into this California database, which we do not own, and we can't create reports on.
I understand that, but we're asking for what local records are they getting that information from in order to put it into the state database?
So toxicology results, medical examiner results, coroner results.
Right. And those things are publicly available.
They're not. We probably have stacks of them. We don't have a report. If we could give it out, I'll play devil's advocate. If we could give it out, it would be, can I speak?
Yeah.
It would mean somebody, and he wanted this by day, and he also wanted it by zip code, I believe, although he may have retracted that. That would involve somebody going in for each day and creating this report, which I also feel that the state will not allow us to do.
All right. Well, that's the thing, is we're trying to get at that because our job is to determine whether the information is public and whether it's publicly, what we have here, not the state information, but the local information, because it originates here. Okay? So that's what we're trying to determine, whether that's public information, and if so, that it is available for public disclosure.
If it is produced and owned by the coroner or by the medical examiner or by the funeral director, maybe that's a place where you go to get that data.
Right. So okay.
No.
Go ahead.
I'll wrap
Member
this
Knapp.
up. So the coroner, the medical examiner, and the other entity you mentioned, they all send stuff in to the
I believe it's not to me. I believe
No.
it goes into that database and we check off a box.
So you're saying the coroner gets online and puts something in the state's database. The
Yes.
coroner doesn't send the Department of Public Health a record.
I believe it's done on the California database.
I'm not convinced, and I'm not convinced that you know enough about this in order to be able to answer our questions.
Okay, you can hear it from her.
I think it would be preferable to have the department, for all these hearings, have sent a person
I
that was
agree.
knowledgeable of this.
I agree, and this, believe me, I don't want to be here.
Okay.
So the person's name is Erica Campos. Maybe you can name her so that she will be compelled to show up.
Okay.
And she's the head of Vital Records.
Okay, members, what do you want to do? Member Moss.
I think we should. I hate to do it again, but I think we should move to continue and until such time that this Ms. Campos can come in. To what extent can we have her come in? Do we just do a formal request through Victor, or?
Yeah, we can request her presence in order to ask the questions, because the respondent didn't send a representative that was knowledgeable to be able for us to come to a conclusion.
Through the chair.
Vice Chair Howell. And then Member Wolf.
I wonder if we could find a violation of that, Section 21E, I believe, and then have our questions in a letter to Ms. Campos, and then have this go to a subcommittee following on. Is that a possible?
If it's the desire for this body to move on that action, I would say move the action, and then we'll see how the vote comes out, and if there are any amendments to it, if there are any discussion points that might change our mind. But I'd like to move this forward in some way. So either we continue it or we take another suggestion about how to move forward. Member Wolf.
I'd feel more comfortable continuing it than to identify that particular violation, because if this had been a simpler thing, we wouldn't have gotten to the appropriate person. It's only as we dig deeper into it, and I think the heart of the matter is not who the department sent. It's essentially, as I understand it, we've got a situation where information is public at the point that it's entered into a database that the state runs, at which point it suddenly no longer becomes legal to distribute to the public. And so it's this weird, like it seems problematic that the city of San Francisco is using this workflow. Like, it seems like the workflow itself may be a violation of the Sunshine Ordinance. But that's certainly not within the purview of how to go about this. But in order to get there, we need to actually have Ms. Campos there, and I'm not sure that a list of questions is going to adequately route out how to work through this to find a
Through
solution.
the chair, let me change
Go
my
ahead.
statement. I guess what I'm looking for is a list of questions and her presence, just to alert her as to the questions we'll be asking her, just so that we can, move quickly once we do have her in front of us. But I guess my real question is, if we found a violation and then we move forward, we can then, mechanically send this on to subcommittee, compliance, education, outreach, whatnot. But I'm wondering, can we continue this directly to a subcommittee? I guess that's my real question.
Yes, we can. We absolutely can.
Through the chair, if we do that, it still has to come back.
Yeah, right. But
Okay.
then, the committee can, kind of work it through as it needs to be and not take up, the time here where we're supposed to be coming to a determination. So it just means it's still incomplete,
Right.
right?
It means
So-
it goes on for another couple
Right.
of months for Mr. Roddy.
So why didn't I make a motion to continue this to the Compliance and Amendments Committee? That's
Well,
our
it would
committee.
be, I would say you would continue it to the call of the chair, but
Right.
refer it to the committee.
Okay.
And then with whatever instructions you think they need to have.
With the instructions to have Ms. Campos appear before that
Before that committee?
And
committee
answer specific
And
questions
answer
that you will provide to me.
in advance. There you go.
Go ahead, Member Josh Wolf, then Member Canada. Well, wait a second. Let's get a second. Is there a
I'll
second to that
that.
motion?
I'll second that.
Okay, moved by second by Member Hensy. Member Wolf.
I think that it's better to bring it with Ms. Campos to the full task force if it has to go to the full task force anyhow, because I'm a little concerned that the Compliance and Amendments Committee will think they've identified all the questions, and then it comes here, and suddenly there's more questions that the new rep or that the representative that's perhaps here today isn't able to answer, and Ms. Campos only came the one time, and that's my concern.
Well, can we,
Member Hensy.
sorry, can we have her come to both?
Absolutely.
Because
So-
I agree with Member Josh Wolf's point. But can we have her come to both? That seems to be the most efficient way to do this.
Member Canada.
I was going to say the other thing that complicates this is that you do have access to these records from the state. Those records don't satisfy Mr. Roddy's needs, but these records are made public by the state. So that's a complicating factor here, because we're not dealing with the records not being able to be made public by anyone. They will be made public by the state. They just don't satisfy the need of the requester.
Right. And again, my assertion is that Department of Public Health feels that it's hamstrung to provide this information. They've gotten notification from the state not to reveal it, but the state can, and they've assisted the petitioner to a place where the information can be found. Now, whether the information locally is being withheld improperly, that's a different story. But Mr. Roddy's request, as I read it, is not for the actual death certificates, is not for the actual records, he's just looking for some numbers. Okay, so that's where I'm leading up to here. I think if you want to go down the path to find out if the information could be found locally, and if the numbers can be offered to Mr. Roddy locally, is it in the best interest of the public to do that? I mean, it does provide, makes it, we come up with a determination, then opens the doors for other members of the public and entities to get the same information in the same way. And then the question then becomes, is it who's right, who's wrong at that point, right? So our job is, to provide as much access, full access to the public as possible within the law that the law provides us. So, all right. right, any other discussion? We have motion on the floor for this to be continued to call the chair, referred to the Compliance and Amendments Committee with a request for appearance by Ms. Erica Campos and
At both the
and at the time that it comes back to the task force to
correct.
she would be in attendance, and and I think the best thing to do for the Compliance Amendments Committee as far as questions is to just ask if the local information, if numbers can be compiled from, be collected or found based upon local information versus the information that's being sent to the state. That would be my suggestion as a good litmus to start with, I guess. All right, any other discussion on this matter? Should we get public comment? Public comment on this item.
No, I want to speak.
Yes, go ahead.
So you all started this meeting at...
Point of order. This is public comment on the motion on the floor. That's what you're talking about.
Okay.
Okay.
So you want me to wait till you all...
Oh, you're looking for, if general public comment comes just after
No,
this.
I know. I live in City Hall, okay?
Okay. So this is...
This meeting was started at 4:05, and now it's 5 o'clock. And from all your questions, I see that we wasted a lot of time because we are not aware of due process. Let's take an example of incident reports. We need to know exactly how incident reports are done, and we also need to know how they are quarried. So if a researcher or a doctor sends us, and I worked for the United States Park Police, sends us a request, we first like to verify his credentials. Then, if there's a murder, any type of murder, all the reports that you were talking about, this entity can request the police, the births and deaths department, and get the information. Now, they may provide it in toto, or they may redact it. That's as simple as it is. Now, Sunshine Task Force was meant to help San Franciscans. And we know that there are various levels of getting information. We can get it from our local disk, and not long ago we used to use Windows 95, so one department couldn't talk to the other. One department cannot talk to another right now in the year 2018. This information that the gentleman is asking, he can get it from the feds. It has to go to CDC, it has to go to other agencies on the federal level, and that information can be got. I would say the Sunshine Task Force should have a checklist before continuing and wasting our time, so that whoever asks for some pertinent questions answers the relevant questions if he is why he's using that information, and once that's taken in consideration, fill out the checklist rather than bring some people from the health department who don't even know really what a particular word stands for. In other words, the etymology of that word. So we have to learn from our mistakes. And I know you, Mr. Chair, you're very astute and stellar. I've known you for a long period of time. We have to learn not to waste the public's time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other public comment on the motion? Seeing no public comment, should call the roll.
On that motion.
Oh, hold on. Member testify.
Can you read out the motion before?
The motion is to continue the matter to the call of the chair, refer to the Compliance Amendments Committee, invite Ms. Campos to the meeting to answer questions to be provided. I don't know if those were provided today or at a future time.
makers?
I'd say today, since we have it in
Yes.
front of us.
Questions to be described. And the matter will be referred to Compliance Amendments Committee prior to it being re-referred back to the task force with a request for Ms. Campos to appear at both meetings.
Okay. All right, let's call the roll, and then we'll get to the other details.
On the motion, Member Highland, Vice Chair Highland.
Aye.
Highland, aye. Member Hinsey.
Aye.
Hinsey, aye. Member Eldon. Eldon, aye. Member Josh Wolf.
Aye.
Wolf, aye. Copra, absent. Member Tesfa.
Aye.
Tesfa, aye. Member Moss.
Aye.
Moss, aye. Member Kanata.
Aye.
Kanata, aye. Member Fisher.
Aye.
Fisher, aye. Chair Wolf.
Aye.
Wolf, aye. The motion passes.
Okay, so next, let's put together some questions. And I also want to respect Member Moss's point about the information already, some of the information or part of the information was already revealed, and maybe if you wanted to make a motion or have some action being taken upon that.
I would rather just keep going at this point rather than make a motion on that.
Okay, great. Okay, so questions?
So I think the
We
first.
want the committee to ask?
I think you've already put one on the record. If you want to restate that one for the clerk.
I believe is paraphrasing. Is the information available locally, being withheld?
Rather than the state level, yeah. So is there a local avenue to this information?
And can the information that the requester is seeking, can that information be gotten from this local information?
Member Moss, anything else to
Oh,
add?
sorry, no, I have nothing else.
That's the crux of it right there.
I would also ask the committee to ask the clerk how they apply Health and Safety Code Section 102.231, because it speaks to data files versus indices. Anything else for the good of the cause? Okay. All right, so let's make that into a motion. So I'll move to have those questions be referred to the
Ms. Campos.
Compliance and Amendments Committee for this particular case, because I want to make sure we get, if maybe members of the public have some other ideas for us too, I'd like to give them the opportunity for that. So is there a second?
Second.
So moved by myself, Chair Wolf, second by Vice Chair Hyland. Any other questions, members? Seeing none, public comment. Yes. Yes. This is specific to, it's more procedural because we're asking about certain questions.
So,
This is not an act, it's specific to an action. Go ahead.
so I just want to say that we really want to help Mr. Roddy, and I did actually print out all of those reports that you're referring to, Dave, for Mr. Roddy, just to make sure that he had. So these are all mortality reports from SF HIP, and so we want him to be able to get what he wants.
Okay.
Through the chair.
Yes.
So I would just to tack onto that, I would just note that there is a lot of information on the California Department of Health site as well, just in general for, Mr. Roddy's, research purposes, that he should just sort of poke around and make sure what he wants isn't already there.
Okay. Any other public comment? Nope. Okay. All right. Seeing no public comment, can we take that by acclamation? Seeing no objection? Okay.
That motion is adopted without objection, with Member Copra being absent.
Great. Okay. Let's call the next item.
Moving on to general public comment. Item number 6, members of the public may address the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force on matters that are within task force jurisdiction but not on today's agenda.
members of the task force. I just wanted to summarize the reasons why the Arts Commission, Kay Patterson, has not turned over documents. And this is what she said on the public record at different hearings at different times. And mind you, I don't know her. That I've spent time in Rikers Island. I don't know where she gets that information. It's not true. I called her at home when she was pregnant. Also not true. I arrive at commissioners' homes and offices unannounced. Absolutely not true. Everyone in the Arts Commission offices is afraid of me. I don't know anyone in that office. I think I was there once. They cracked the door open a bit and threw some papers out. I go to their office to harass them? No. She said this at one of the early meetings, that everyone who files sunshine requests where the Arts Commission is a respondent sends Kay Patterson alerts when the documents are due. That's not true. I've called their office so many times, all their answering machines are full. Never. I don't call them at all. I stalk Arts Commission employees. I don't know any of them. I was arrested for selling bottle caps. She gave that as a reason why she wasn't turning over documents. She doesn't have to turn over documents because the city attorney said she didn't need to, and she said his name is Gus. She said sunshine hearings are like being spanked with a wet noodle. She said she didn't have to supply responsive documents if she feels it jeopardizes the safety of others, and that I've been to prison. I don't know where she gets her information. These are not reasons for not turning over documents. I think I've demonstrated it over 5 years. Not only does she invent codes and such, I wish she could be here today to listen to the things that she said. To me, it's absolutely shocking that this continues. It's called slander, and I really wish it would stop. Here's my public comment.
Any other public comment?
Hello, Michael Petralis. I have a few items. The first is, of course, that I wish these monthly meetings were airing on TV. The second item is I'd like to ask all members, as part of your commitment to serving democracy, to please come to all of the meetings, especially the committee meetings, because a recent complaint of mine, there was a motion to send the matter to the Ethics Commission, and I believe the motion failed by one vote. And if there had been another member or so at the committee, or maybe it was the full task force, I'm sorry, I'm a little bit spacey about where exactly that motion was made, but I believe my chances would have been better in my favor if everyone who was on the committee or our task force was there. And my final item is I would like for you guys, I've put this out before, but I'd like for you to consider some time limits on how long you will ask questions, how long you will talk on each item, because my item is on the agenda for today, but I don't expect that it's going to be heard before 6 o'clock. And I believe that you should find a way to expedite what questions you want to ask. Don't repeat the questions if someone else has asked it. Condense what you are saying. Put some restraints on yourself so that these matters can move forward, and we can all get out of here sooner and hopefully get resolution sooner to the complaints. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other public comment? Seeing no other public comment is closed. Please call the next item.
Next on the agenda, item number 4, file number 17132, complaint filed by Anonymous against Eric Pawlowski and the Recreation and Parks Department for allegedly violating Administrative Code Section 67.25 by failing to allow, by failing to respond to immediate disclosure requests in a timely and or complete manner.
Okay, are both parties here?
Is the
Mr. Pawlowski? Did it's anonymous on the phone or provide any presence of any kind?
I would just like to summarize that at the committee level, the complainant did not appear. However, I did suggest that we continue it to the full task force as it was anonymous. I did try to reach out to Anonymous with additional emails to inform him that if he did not appear, the matter would be tabled pursuant to our complaint procedures.
Okay. Let's hear from the chair
So
of
there
CSC.
there were three issues that we had with this. The first issue, there was an original request on 10/23 of 2017 where I believe all the records were eventually provided. I don't think they were provided on time, but they were eventually provided. There was a subsequent request on November 18th of 2018 asking for subsequent data. The respondent took that to mean data from the first meeting to the second meeting. And I believe that data was provided, but according to the documentation, the complainant wanted any records that would be created in the future to be provided to them. And one of the reasons we brought it up here was to address that issue, because we had discussion on that. And Member Moss, anything else? Because I know that was one of your issues.
I mean, there was, and I'm going to try to bring up all of the documents from committee level, but I think there was sort of three periods of, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there are three periods of times we were looking at for records. One was the historic records. One was these rolling future records that the complainant thought he deserved, or they deserved. And then there was this in-between for the records that were creative after the first request, but before the second request for the rolling stuff. So there was this middle stuff that we were looking at in particular. Is that you understand it?
I think, yeah, but I also thought that we had a bunch of discussion on if a request for records not yet created was a valid request. So that's my memory of it. But I believe that the respondent can let us know what records have been provided up to this point, and then.
All right, well, first we have to decide whether we're taking the case up because the petitioner's not present.
So what are the options? Because the petitioner wasn't present the last time either.
The task force can take it up on behalf of Anonymous. Absolutely. But it's our choice. To do that, or you can.
Well, the option if we don't, what happens to the complaint?
We close it, we table it, and it dies at the end of this meeting.
Okay.
So, what shall it be, folks? Want to hear the case or not?
Josh?
Yes, Member Joshua.
We could continue it to the call of the chair as well, couldn't we?
You could. I would urge you not to do that. The more continuance we get, it creates more backlogs later.
Well, the only reason that I suggest to continue it to the call of the chair and not either hear it in their absence or table it is that if we table it, they can't make the same request again. And if we hear it in their absence and they have a novel argument as to why their approach to rolling requests should be required under the Sunshine Ordinance, I mean, we can't make that argument for them. They need to make it. And so that's why I feel that leaving it essentially open to see if Anonymous seeks to reach out to the department to bring it back on so that it's not basically out of pocket killed.
Let me ask just a quick question. Do you feel that you have enough information to be able to move the case forward here today?
I feel that there is a potential argument that we would need to hear the complainant make and not be made from this side of the...
So a rebuttal, something in there, a rebuttal. I mean, they presented the case to the complaint committee.
Anonymous didn't present the complaint.
Oh, Anonymous wasn't there.
No,
Okay.
Anonymous has never made a case.
I'm sorry. So, okay, Member Canada.
So my feeling is we either hear it or table it, because Anonymous hasn't shown up for 2 meetings,
Okay.
has not contacted Victor, as far as I know. Correct, Victor?
Yes, I have not received contact.
So has
and
not
I-
even contacted Victor saying, I'm sick, I can't make it. I personally don't want to continue it.
I have a motion.
Go ahead.
I make a motion that we continue this.
Table it.
Table it, whatever the term is. Thank you.
I'll second that one.
Thank you.
Okay, moved by Member Fisher, second by Member
My
Kanata.
explanation is it's basically what you said. If they're not here, then we're not going to hear it, and let's move on to the people that are here. Let's respect the people that are here.
Okay, any further discussion on the matter? Public comment on the item? Seeing no public comment, please call roll.
On that motion, Member Fisher.
Aye.
Fisher, aye. Member Kanata.
Aye.
Kanata, aye. Member Josh Wolf.
No.
Wolf, no. Copra, absent. Member Tesfa.
Aye.
Tesfa, aye. Member Moss.
No.
Moss, no.
Killing me.
Member Hinsey. Hinsey, aye. Vice Chair Hyland.
Aye.
Hyland, aye. Member Eldon. Aye. Eldon, aye. Chair Wolf.
Aye.
Wolf, aye. The motion passes. The matter is tabled. I will be informing the party that the matter is tabled, and they do have a time limit to try to reschedule the matter as appropriate.
Okay, I just want to inform the task force members that, we can take up issues. If you feel that there's enough compelling information, we can take up issues without, if Anonymous is not appearing, and if you feel that it's in the best interest of the public, we can do that. All right, next item.
Item number 5, file number 18007, complaint filed by Michael Trellis against former acting mayor London Breed and the office of the mayor for allegedly violating Administrative Code section 6725 by failing to respond to a media disclosure request in a timely and/or complete manner. This matter was heard by the Education, Outreach, and Training Committee on February 20th, 2018.
Okay, can we get a summary from the committee?
Was that us?
Yes.
Fiona?
EOT.
Victor?
No, it was me.
Oh, it was you.
So, Mr. Petralis had requested the calendar of the period that London Breed was acting mayor. I'm not 100%. I believe he only requested that information from the office of the mayor, but he may have been, I think the language of the request was inclusive of London Breed and not necessarily acting Mayor London Breed and not Supervisor London Breed, because during that time she had 2 roles and potentially 2 calendars. So the office of the mayor did attend the meeting. No one from London Breed staff attended the meeting. But I think we determined that it was actually only the office of the mayor that was notified in this example anyhow. And in essence, there was a process where they had to basically consolidate the 2 calendars. They recognized that there was information that was legally required to be on the calendar that wasn't included, and so they went through the process of sort of gathering and completing the calendar, at which point it was provided to Mr. Petralis. I think we may have found, I don't remember whether we moved this forward with no recommendation or with a violation.
With a recommendation to find a violation of 67.21D for failing to respond in a timely manner.
Great. That's what we identified as a likely violation. And I think that summarizes everything.
Okay, let's move it forward. Mr. Petralis.
Hi, Michael Petralis again. First of all, thank you for proving me wrong and hearing this complaint way before 6 o'clock. Thank you. I requested the acting mayor's calendar, and when I received, you'll see it in the packet there, I received calendars laid out on an old-fashioned grid. It would just say things like meeting, communications in mayor's office. and it did not include the information as required by law as to who was at the meeting and some specifics about what was discussed. So I followed up with Victor Lim for the full calendar of what the topics were at the meetings and who the attendees were. And I feel that there should not be a burden on the public to make a request for both calendars, that the mayor's office has a responsibility to release a detailed calendar. And I don't believe it was right for the city to take as long as it did in terms of getting me the supplemental calendar, which was what I was looking for in the first place, about who was at the meetings and what was discussed. I believe that about 3 years ago, in a related matter with the then Chief of Staff, Steve Cowa, we went through the same thing about what kind of calendars the mayor is keeping and when they get a request for those calendars, what they release. And the mayor's office, I think they just weren't on the ball. And this is a simple matter of calendars have to be kept regardless of the tragic death of Mayor Lee when he passed away. So I'm asking you to find the mayor's office in violation. Thank you.
Are there any persons or witnesses providing any facts or evidence on behalf of the petitioner? Seeing none, is the respondent present?
Oh,
Hi, Victor Lim, Deputy Communications Director from the Mayor's Office. Good evening, everyone. So we spoke on the 20th, and we came up and we explained the situation. And we don't dispute the timeliness. We know that that was definitely our fault. But just on background, on the 22nd of January, the Mayor's Office received Mr. Petrellis' IDR sent via email requesting the following documents: a copy of your detailed full schedule of all your official events and meetings held in City Hall or elsewhere as part of your official duties for the period of December 12th, 2017 to January 22nd, 2018. That's the period for acting Mayor Breed. And for that period of time, subject to the request, Supervisor Breed was serving as the president of the Board of Supervisors and as acting mayor pursuant to Section 13.101-.5b of the San Francisco Charter due to death of former Mayor Ed Lee. On the 23rd of January, we produced records in response to Mr. Petrellis' request. On the 25th of January, Mr. Petrellis sent an email stating that the following: I've received the responsive records. However, there is an outstanding matter of request for the list of attendees and topics discussed at the acting mayor's meetings. So we knew that there was an issue, and we took action to address this, and we told him that we would provide him a response as soon as possible. And in summary, and thank you, Mr. Wolf, for your summary, the reason why we didn't have all the information at the time was that acting Mayor Breed, out of respect for former Mayor Lee, for the family and for the staff, all his belongings in there, and the abrupt death, she did not choose to use that room, Mayor Lee's office, to take meetings yet. And so there was a lapse at the time for the documentation, especially for meetings for individuals 10 or fewer, which we usually have a very good record-keeping system of who attends. And so then what we did with the lapse of that, we had the scheduling colleagues go back, backtracked the information, and we produced an updated record, and we produced it to Mr. Petrellis. But again, we apologize for this delay. Now, since this hearing and the complaint, we've taken action to make sure that this lapse won't happen again. First, now Mayor Farrell is actually in room 200. The confidential secretaries and the scheduling staff have direct oversight of all the meetings that take place in room 200. All the forms are filled out properly, and we assure that if a request was to be made again, that this would not happen again. and we apologize for this unusual circumstance due to the death of Mayor Lee. And thank you for hearing this.
Thank you. Are there any persons or witnesses to provide any facts or evidence on behalf of the respondent? Seeing none, members. Okay, so I have a couple of questions. Mr. Lim? So I'm trying to get the timeline straight here again.
Yeah.
So
And you can,
I'm looking at the in our packet. I'm looking that Mr. Petrellis made his original request on January 22nd, and you responded on January 23rd. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And
then when did you responded with some records?
We responded with records at the time.
Okay.
Yes.
And for any where those records are electronic, right? They're in the city's like online. Everybody has
The mayor's office uses a program called Lotus Notes.
Okay.
And so our colleagues in the scheduling office would need to just put this together.
Right. So it can be accessed from anybody's desk, basically, correct?
Only certain staff members in the mayor's office.
Right.
Mayor's
If
staff.
somebody logged off and then you logged on with your own login, you get all the access to whatever you needed, right? Person who has the authority.
Correct.
Okay.
Which is the scheduling colleagues.
Right. So the people who have access to the information that Mr. Petrellis wanted, they could have gone to any computer. They didn't have to go into room 200, right?
For the completeness of that, they would have to go to room 200. But through submitting a request with the custodian records in the mayor's office, which is me, and then I would initiate the process.
So I'm a little confused. So if at that time acting Mayor Breed was not using room 200, the actual mayor's office,
correct,
then anything pertaining to her would not be present physically in that office.
Could you rephrase the last question?
So if nobody was using the mayor's office, if acting Mayor Breed at that time was not using that office, okay, out of respect,
right,
then nothing that pertains to her would be physically in that office.
Meaning the calendar, or
yeah, just the fact that she wasn't physically using that office,
right,
means there's nothing physically pertaining to her that would be in that office.
For the most part, yes,
for that
correct.
period of time.
Yes.
Okay. So any calendaring that was being done outside, physically outside of that office.
So when she was acting mayor,
yeah,
the calendaring part was done within room 200. We're talking about the physical room where Mayor Lee was actually sitting down. It's a sub room within room 200.
No, I understand.
Yeah. So, but the scheduling folks are also in the greater section of room 200.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're saying the entire room 200 was closed?
No. So
I'm confused.
Let me rephrase.
Okay.
So, for example, if the mayor wanted to meet with an individual, usually they would be in the room where Mayor Lee was with his desk.
His desk, right?
Yeah, correct. And so you would go through
the actual mayor's office.
Yes, inside room 200,
right,
through the hallway.
Got it.
Yeah. She didn't use that room.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if she didn't use that room, then any physical records pertaining to her wouldn't be in that room.
The calendar would not reflect the meetings in that room.
Right, because she wasn't using it.
Right.
Okay. But the information would be then contained somewhere else in room 200.
So they would still schedule the time and the location on the computer by
Right.
the two scheduling colleagues.
Right, so it's basically all managed on computer, right? The scheduling?
Yes.
Okay, so that's the first thing I wanted to make sure we get clear, okay, is that all this information, it doesn't necessarily have a physical location per se, it's all on computerized.
However, for the forms, which there was a lapse in the paperwork, those forms, according to the Prop G calendar and the Sunshine Law and all that, those are physical forms. So if it's a meeting for any individual that's not within mayoral staff that meets with the mayor, prior to entering physically the door of the mayor's office, where Mayor Lee used to sit, there are the confidential secretaries. They would have the form where the guest would fill out their name
Right.
and affiliation.
Okay, so all I'm getting at here is I'm just trying to understand, where the information is, because you made a claim that the information couldn't be gotten because that office wasn't being used out of respect for.
Right, so that
former
meant
Mayor
some of
Lee.
the mayoral staff that usually would have all the names.
Right, but but he was the petitioner, Mr. Petrelis, is asking for information specifically on, at that time, acting Mayor Breed and not former Mayor Lee.
Correct.
So that's where that's why I just wanted to get clear on that. Go ahead,
I
Member
have
Canada.
a follow-up question. So what I just understood is the actual scheduling of the meetings done online. The attendees sign a form as they walk into the meeting, and to provide who was at each meeting, you go through this physical form?
Correct.
Okay. So when Acting Mayor Breed had a meeting, that the actual time and place of the meeting's online, right?
Correct.
So that's what you provided initially.
Yes.
So when Acting Mayor Breed had these meetings, are you saying that nobody took down who was at the meeting? Oh, in order to provide that? Or I know they weren't being done in room 200, but as you're walking into whatever room this meeting's at with Acting Mayor Breed, nobody took down the attendees?
So the form suggests that you sign in, but it's not required. And if they don't sign in, the staff would have to keep a record of who these individuals are for meetings 10 or less. So what happened was the staff had to go back to the other colleagues who staffed the acting mayor at the time and wherever the location was to aggregate all this data back onto a document, which we actually produced for Mr. Petrelis' purposes.
Right. That's the one you produced late.
We gave a follow-up supplemental.
Right.
Okay.
In response to his question.
Any other questions? I just have one more. Mr. Petrelis, so your complaint is for the subsequent detail of the calendar?
Yes.
Okay, and when did you receive that? And is that's you're talking about timeliness with regards to receiving that?
The timeliness on the second batch of documents that were released to me, that those should have been released in the first place. And that the more detailed calendar with who was attending and what was discussed, that was a violation because it was so late.
Well, so I'm looking on page 113, February 7th. And from that point forward, I see a listing with a description of the meeting and the attendees.
Right.
Is that the information that you did not get the first time?
Correct.
Okay. This is the information that you were expecting.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay. Anything else? Yeah.
I just wanted to note that I think we're not looking. I mean, certainly he filed an IDR, but it seems like the relevant section here is 6729-5 as opposed to the IDR section. In that there's certainly a time frame for the IDR, but for a calendar there is a 3-day hard deadline that doesn't seem to provide for exceptions for extending the time period.
Which subparagraph?
A, last line.
Such calendars shall be public records and shall be available to any requester 3 business days subsequent to the calendar entry date. Okay. All right. Let's get any rebuttals, and then we can have at it. Okay. Mr. Lim, do you have any rebuttal at this time? Mr. Petralis, any rebuttal?
I would just add that I wish everything Victor was saying, especially about how they are keeping the calendars, I wish all of his presentation were available on SF.gov TV to shed more sunshine into how the mayor's office is operating and the importance of this task force.
Thank you. All right. So, I'm the Member Moss, do you want to? I'm not quite clear on that last sentence. That it's how things are being delivered. What is your feeling on how that?
So so looking back at Mr. Petralis' initial complaint, he doesn't. The language he copies and pastes into his complaint is from that section, not from the IDR section.
Right.
And so that's kind of the first trigger for me.
Right.
The second thing is that if you look at 67.29-5, there's various provisions here that we might look at in terms of a violation. One is the timeliness. The respondent has already acknowledged they were slow in getting the record, so I don't know that we need to really hash that out too much. Okay. Then it seems like that they didn't follow the normal process that they had under Mayor Lee in terms of documenting everything properly. That's also under the same section, 67.295. There's just various letters to it. So for me, it's just sort of like an overall finding a violation of 67.295 as opposed to going all the way back to the IDR stuff.
Got it. Okay. Anybody else? Is there a motion?
So I will move to file a violation of section 67.29-5 regarding calendars of certain officials.
I'll second.
Moved by Member Moss, by Member Josh Wolf. Is there any additional instruction you'd like on that? Do you want it to be referred to committee or anything like that? Or?
Unless there's outstanding records, and I don't think there were any, and considering that the circumstances that led to this issue have moved on, then I don't feel like there's a need for this to be sent to anyone.
Okay, great. Anything else for the good of cause? Public comment?
Members of the task force, I have 2 orders on the mayor's office. Mr. Lim appeared once and said the exact same thing. We're sorry for the late response. We don't know what happened. It's not going to happen again. The second time, is his name Francis Sang, went on a long trip somewhere in Asia. I didn't get a response for months and months afterwards, and it was the same thing. I don't understand how he can correlate with London Breed wasn't physically in the office, and therefore this list of attendees, which is a written document, was not included in the file. To me, they're just excuses. And the fact that this has happened 3 times that I can speak on, I'm sure it's happened a lot more, means that there's a pattern of behavior.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment?
This is a case where we have Mr. Petralis asking the right questions. And in the adjudication, I would commend Dave Moss, because you hit it on the nail, this 672.95. And I commend Victor, who I've known for a long time. The important thing is, if you've done wrong, you apologize and you fix it. And the lesson is that this should be televised so that decent San Franciscans, when they want to make the right type of inquiries, they see and they witness how those in the Sunshine Task Force respond to, as was done in this case. It uplifts the people at home who are a bit worried now with the San Francisco Ethics Commission and have to rely more on the Sunshine Task Force at this critical juncture. Thank you very much.
Is there any more comment on this motion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
On the motion to find a violation of 67.29-5 regarding calendars and the timeline for providing that information, Member Moss.
Aye.
Moss, aye. Member Josh Wolf.
Aye.
Wolf, aye. Copra, absent. Member Tesfa.
Aye.
Tesfa, aye. Member Kanata.
Aye.
Kanata, aye. Member Fisher.
Aye.
Fisher, aye. Member Hinsey.
Aye.
Hinsey, aye. Vice Chair Hyland.
Aye.
Hyland, aye. Member Eldon.
Aye.
Eldon, aye. Chair Wolf.
Aye.
Wolf, aye. The motion passes.
Hey, anybody need a break?
Take 5.
Okay, can we do a 10-minute break? Yeah.
Need mics. We are back on the record. Next on the agenda is item number 7, file number 17096, complaint filed by Kevin Williams against Kate Patterson and the Arts Commission for allegedly violating Administrative Code, Section 67.25. This matter was referred to the Compliance Amendments Committee, who provided instructions to both parties, who provided additional submissions regarding the 26 requested items. I will leave the summary to Chair Kanata.
Yeah, at Compliance and Amendments, both the respondent and complainant were going through their items again and saying what was, and there was a lot of stuff, so we wanted everything in one spot, so we asked both parties to provide data. Both provided voluminous responses, which parts of both responses list the 25 questions, and each one has, so the Arts Commission will have, this is what we gave them, we think this is done, or et cetera, and the complainant has, yes, this is what you provided, but it's not enough, or it is. So it's all in the documents that were provided.
Some items are in one packet, but not in the other.
No. They're
both identical?
No, they're not both identical.
Okay.
No, the Arts Commission, the first one I received was the Arts Commission, and then we received Mr. Williams' packets.
Okay, great. Mr. Williams, 5 minutes.
All right. First and foremost, I'd like to thank the members for the time and attention that they've given this matter, particularly Mr. Wolf, Mr. Hyland, Mr. Kanata, and all the rest of the members that have had a chance, if you have, to read all of the materials. We've endeavored to obtain records some now 7 months. I was a little off because I thought this meeting would be the second week of March. So it's 7 months rather than seven and a half months. So I'll make that correction on the record. But first and foremost, I would not want to take up a whole lot more of your time. I'd just like to synthesize what I believe there being 7 counts that are violations of the Sunshine Ordinance, and I've listed those. But first, let me start off with a legal interpretation that has been decided by the First Appellate District Court specific to the Sunshine Ordinance. The First Appellate District Court held in the case of Rivero versus the Superior Court of the City and County of San Francisco, responded in Arlo Smith Real Properties and Interest. This is 1997 5-4 Cal. 4th 1048, and the judge said in that case, the opinion, that so long as no law enforcement information that would impede law enforcement investigation proceedings and seek disclosure of confidential information under virtually all other circumstances, production of public records is required. Here, this case, a IDA was made under Sunshine Ordinance Section 6725, and it met the technical qualifications for immediate disclosure. What the Arts Commission did was essentially compile that information into one voluminous request and request a 14-day extension when they admit on the very day it was received, that being August 17th, that it was immediately disclosable because the Bayview Opera House was subject to, as a grantor or grantee, the provisions of Administrative Code 6724E, and that the records were disclosable. That is in the compliance amendments record. I've cited to that. There was no justification under any event for them not to disclose the records immediately, that portion of the records. None of the information upon which they invoked a 14-day extension included law enforcement records. Yet, they did so. The maximum is 10 days. So what Ms. Patterson did by invoking the government code provision 6753 was improper, or 6253. It was improper and contravening to the Sunshine Ordinance, Section 6726, where there should be no withholding of documents where it is unnecessary. Members, I'm deeply troubled by the fact that the initial response to my August 16th IDA was responded to not by Ms. Patterson, but by the City Attorney's Office. Clear violation. And that's something that can easily slip past when it's been done over and over again in this process. That is the second violation. The other violations are that we have requested information clearly under the purview of 6724E, such as resumes, biographical information on the board members of the Opera House. We have not received it. We have requested other information that we've decided to waive so that we don't go back and forth about this department or that department. We have not received that information. Articles of incorporation. Any of you that have ever sat on a nonprofit know that articles of incorporation, particularly if you are a grant or prospective grantor, that is the first thing you ask. We requested articles of incorporation. Those were denied as well. Of a nonprofit that this Arts Commission grants $500,000 to $700,000 a year.
Thank you. Are there any persons or witnesses providing any facts or evidence on behalf of the petitioner? Seeing none, respondent. 5 minutes.
5 minutes in total, not 5 minutes.
Ms. Trabeau, you're not the chair.
Yeah, let's have some quiet in the audience, please.
Good evening. Kate Patterson, San Francisco Arts Commission. I hope you did spend time reading the letter that I submitted that included an itemized list of our responses as well as our rebuttals to Mr. Williams' rebuttals. And so I hope you look through that. I have been consistent throughout this process that the Arts Commission provided all the records in its possession, that we were absolutely justified in issuing an extension because a 26-question immediate disclosure request is voluminous and not many of the records were not readily accessible. And there is a narrative of conspiracy that's been espoused here that is absolutely false. I've been absolutely transparent throughout the whole process. I have helped facilitate information gathering for Mr. Williams at every turn. I have turned over records. And so, I hope you go through this. The Arts Commission gave the records in its possession. The Bayview Opera House is a grantee of the Arts Commission. They are not required to disclose records in the same fashion as the city department, and we don't necessarily know all the records in its possession, so it would not be fair to have an expectation that we would have those records and we'd be able to procure them. The records that they were responsible for turning over, they have turned over, and we've provided all that information. So I'm here to answer any further questions you might have, and I am willing to go through this item by item. I wish we had done this at the beginning because I feel like maybe we could have truncated this process. But again, we gave everything. We did not withhold. I personally have no interest in withholding information to thwart any effort that Mr. Williams may have underway, what have you. I fulfilled my duty in turning over records, and I think we've provided ample evidence that that is the case.
Thank you. Are any persons or witnesses provide any facts or evidence on behalf of the respondent? Seeing none. Members? Member Canada?
Well, I went through this, and my numbers may not be perfect, but it's out of the 26 questions, I think 20 of them, the Arts Commission responded saying it was the Opera House's responsibility. They said it was under 12L and the Opera House should provide records, that the Arts Commission didn't have them. And so I don't know. Ms. Patterson just stated that some of the records from the Opera House were provided. I don't know how many of them were, Mr. Williams, but that was it. The rest of them, there were a few that said other departments had information, and they were related to budgetary issues where I think only 3.1 out of the 5 million or 3.1 of the 5 million plus were still outstanding, but that the Arts Department said, the Arts Commission said it's not in their purview. And the rest of them, a few of them, the Arts Commission said, we've given everything we have. There's nothing else we can do. I don't know how we resolve each of these going back, unless you go through each one, but this is what we've been trying to do. So I'm open to suggestions on how we go forward with this.
So, Member, can I refresh my memory, or anybody else refresh my memory on this? So we've heard cases before around the Opera House and the Arts Commission. We've heard at least one case, right?
I believe this is that case.
This is that case, yes.
Okay, this is a continue.
This has been going on for 7 months.
So I'm just wondering if then refresh my memory on the official status of the Opera House as it relates to the city and county. Does it own it? Does it lease it? Does it, in that kind of way? Is this a 12L issue?
Well, the information, there is information that the Arts Commission saying falls under 12L and should be requested and provided, requested from and provided by the Opera House. That the Arts Commission does not have that information.
Okay.
And then there's other budgetary issues where the data provided by the Arts Commission doesn't add up to all the money spent, and the Arts Commission says, we don't have that information. You have to talk to DPW or public, these other departments that may have had that in their budget.
Okay. Yeah. I just wanted to be clear, make sure everybody is clear on that. So, okay. Questions, discussion?
I've just said I'm open to hearing what other people have to say because, this has been going on at numerous meetings here, and it's always been the same discussion. We provided it, we didn't get it. No, you didn't. It's supposed to. So, how do we proceed in this?
Member Josh Wolf.
So, a couple things. It seems to me that there is potentially a timeliness violation, and that it went over the 10-day extension, and the San Francisco sunshine laws are more stringent than what the state allows. So I see a potential timeline violation there. I also see a lot of suggestions in the narrative of Mr. Williams' argument that seem to be outside the purview of sunshine issues, and I'm curious why. Mr. Williams, can you speak to why you essentially included stuff that, seeks to put a question marks around various relations in City Hall, but is explicitly not within the purview of sunshine, the Sunshine Ordinance at least. Can you speak to that for a bit?
It is the motivation for withholding the documents. Because if they were, and I'll give you an example after I specifically answer your question. If they did, it would reveal to the good people of the city and county of San Francisco that they're using the Opera House as a conduit, not for artistic endeavors, but for economic development. That is the reason they don't want to give up the biographical information on their members who don't sing, dance. I can sing the Star-Spangled Banner beautifully. I can act, I can tell jokes. I grew up on the stage. But they don't care about that. They have positioned themselves for economic development, not artistic development. That is the reason why they've done an event there praising pimps, human trafficking, in a facility that is honoring a black woman who happened to be my mother. So my motivation is beyond just the documents. It is what has happened as a consequence of secrecy. That is what has allowed them to operate using that building that is supposed to be a sanctuary for cultural development, not for praising human traffickers. That is what they're using the building for.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. So based on what I just heard from Mr. Williams, it does seem that to whatever extent this violation is willful, he has provided contextual evidence to sort of support that theory. So I think that if we do identify a willful violation, it is important to put this whole file towards ethics to look into the issues that he raised. Whether we find a willful violation or not, I'm not inclined to weigh in. But if we do, I do see the importance of how that context would be important to carry forward.
Member Wolf, I'd like to also respond and add to the other issues that were discussed. I didn't want to take up this task force time with 26 issues. What I wanted to do in coming back here is to save time and focus on not so much the 26 issues, but whether there was compliance with the law. That is the reason why I listed the counts and the basis for them, if I may put these down, and I won't take up too much more time.
Turn on the overhead, please. Turn on your monitors, members. Member Moss.
Yeah, I think he's referring to, so I was going to answer Member Kanata, I was going to say that it seems like the petitioner has narrowed what he's asking us to look at to 7 counts, which begin on page 267 in our packet.
Okay, great.
Yes.
We could just go through those because they're a lot more direct, and it speaks to a specific section of the law that the petitioner wants us to look at.
Okay, but before we go through that, this is more of a which section of the law are we referring this violation to? Is it to the section 67 or section 12L?
Well, we don't. If it's 12L, then we have to have a different respondent here, right? We need
no. If in 12L 12L5B, where it's under dispute resolution. Actually, the agency or the department that's party to the nonprofit is the one that will make a determination as to what the dispensation of the records are and if they should be released or not. And if the requester doesn't agree with that, then they could bring it here for determination. But if we consider this to be under the Section 67, then we can move forward with the presentation.
That's fine. I'm just pointing out that the petitioner does not, in the 7 counts he's asking us to look at, none of them are 12L. They're all 67.
Okay, and that was why I opened the questioning with, what is the actual status of this location? Is it being run by a separate nonprofit? Is it a city-created body? Is it that kind of thing? In order to determine, to determine that. So I don't see any advice regarding that. I don't recall a discussion about it.
Through the chair, yeah. Well, last time this was before the full task force body. The IDR went to the Opera House, but the Opera House didn't have the information that was requested.
Right.
It forwarded it to the Arts Commission, and the Arts Commission honored the request as if it went to them. So the last hearing, everyone moved forward under the assumption that Admin Code 67 would apply, rather than 12L.
Okay. Just want to make sure we're all on the same page here.
I'm not sure if they stated they didn't have the information, as opposed to stating they didn't know if the information needed to be released. I don't remember that, but
I think from all the enumerated requests, it seemed that maybe they did have some, but it was required to get other city agencies, namely the Arts Commission, involved because they had that information. DPW had other information. MTA may have had other information.
Okay. Got it. Okay. That clears that for me. So we're all on the same page as this is under Section 67.
Right.
Okay, great. Moving on. Okay, so Member Moss, you suggested we start on page 267 and go through that list?
Yeah, and that's what's on the screen right now.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Proceed.
With your permission, Mr. Chair.
Sure, go for it.
If you will note, 6721 states that the custodian of records stated that the records requested of public, but did not, upon written request of the complainant's petition within 5 days, and no later than 45 days, and I point out here that time is passed, notify the district attorney or attorney general to take measures to ensure compliance. The next section in that is count 2, 6721I. From the initial filing of the IDR to the response shows the custodian of records, and indeed the department head was represented by the city attorney's office.
One more.
Yeah, sorry, you moved on to count 2, and I was wondering if we could just deal with these one at a time.
If you would like to, I just
feel like we don't need to read through.
Certainly.
I have a point of order.
Yeah.
I appreciate you, Mr. Williams, giving us the walk through them, but I'm not sure that we shouldn't be going through them ourselves because, in essence, this is more time of testimony from you that we probably need to hear from the other side. So I think we're better off walking through this.
Very good.
Great.
I'd be happy if I could answer any other questions after you do the walkthrough.
Great.
Thank you.
Happy to do it.
We'll call upon you if that's needed. Thank you. All right. So for number 1, discussion on number 1.
Does anyone know what other than you, Mr. Williams, does anyone on the within the task force know what the 45 days to notify the district attorney is referencing?
Yes. So it says that. So I assume this is section 6721E.
That's correct.
And that is so. In this case, if a custodian refuses, fails to comply, or incompletely complies with a request, or if a petition is denied or not acted upon by the supervisor of public records, the person may petition the task force, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Then the Sunshine Task Force shall inform the petitioner as soon as possible within 2 days after. Oh man, I'm missing it. Sorry about that, guys. I've lost track. Sorry. Let me take a break to make sure I'm reading the right section.
I've got it here. I've
Okay.
got it in hard copy.
Okay.
What section is it?
6721E.
E, okay. Yes, it's right.
Right, and it says if the custodian refuses, fails to comply, or incompletely complies with a request described in B above, or if a petition is denied or not acted upon by the supervisor of public records, the person making the request may petition the Sunshine Task Force for a determination whether the record requested is public. The Sunshine Task Force shall inform the petitioner as soon as possible and within 2 days after its next meeting, but in no case later than 45 days from when a petition in writing is received, of its determination whether the record requested or any part of the record requested is public.
So the question becomes, if the complaint is on 6725, then this would not apply. The microphone, please.
6721 is making reference to our obligations, not the obligations of the custodian of records to notify anyone. So that's why when we have something, for example, at the complaint committee, we make sure to determine if the document is public and whether we have jurisdiction over it, and that's what this is in reference to. So it's not something that we would find a violation of against a.
That's right. This is a function of the Sunshine Task Force to the complainant, to the parties. Yes, Member Joshua.
I mean, it seems like if that's the argument he's making, that would need to be a complaint against the Sunshine Task Force. Although I don't know who would hear that complaint.
Well, I mean,
we'd hear a complaint against ourselves.
Yeah, we met
those
requirements. We're confused about the context. So let's ask Mr. Williams what context that he's making this complaint, this particular complaint.
It was
in the microphone,
I'm
please.
sorry. Yes, it was in the context of what contributed to such a long delay process and otherwise. It wasn't a complaint against the task force.
Yeah, I'm just a little confused because the way you wrote this, it seems like you're putting the onus on the Arts Commission.
No, what I was putting on the respondent was they had a duty to either respond that the documents are not non-disclosable, or that they're not public, they're exempt from disclosure. Ms. Patterson never said that any of these records that I have not received in almost 7.5 months were not public. She's not said that one time.
Okay. Go ahead.
I think it's clear to everyone here, but she actually doesn't have a duty to do that. That's a duty for us to do that, and that's to protect petitioners from filing a complaint, filing a petition, and the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force not acting on it in any way.
Right.
So it's not an obligation for her, it's for us.
Right. So that first, I think that we're kind of in a.
I'm glad that you're going through them one by one, because
the first count, it doesn't really, it's not applicable.
Yes.
Okay. Let's move to the second one.
Yeah. Having had a member testify, that explained to me why I was confused when I was reading it out, because I saw 45 days and then I was reading, I was like, wait, this doesn't make any sense, and now I understand why.
Okay, great.
Should I just go ahead and read count two?
Go for it.
Okay, so count two, it was looking at 6721I. It says, from the initial filing of the IDR to the response shows that the custodian of record, indeed the department head, was represented by the city attorney's office in violation of the provisions of the ordinance cited. And so if you look at 6721I, it talks about the city attorney not being allowed to represent people for the purposes of withholding public records or denying public records. And I think that's where we are, and that's the next thing to discuss.
Okay. Comments? Questions? Clarification from anybody?
Does the city attorney does the city attorney represent the departments in these issues? And if so, does any opinion that the city attorney gives them that stops them from handing over public records would apply under this section? But I don't know that a city attorney did this.
Well, I would have more of the question, does the city attorney have records that are responsive? That would be a reason for them to respond. If they don't have records that are responsive as a custodian, and they're acting as a representative, or they're acting on behalf of, or as the legal counsel of record, that would be a different matter. That would then fall under 6721I. If they were responding to themselves as party to all of this record collection, that they didn't have or any responsive records, then that would be for a different paragraph of this section. Member Moss?
I don't have an answer to that question. I was just curious how this task force has interpreted this section in general, because clearly the city attorney exists to advise departments in legal matters. And if you look at J, like clearly the city attorney has to defend cases in court. I am just unclear of the in-between. Like, is it that a city attorney can only advise when it's time to release a document and then has to do a no comment if they think a document needs to be withheld? Or how have we done it before?
What this particular section is stating is that if the city attorney must make kind of a blanket opinion so that all departments will have the benefit of that opinion, and that the withholding of the information is not to be to instruct or to advise a particular department on how to withhold records. It has to be somewhat a public opinion that this is our position on this particular piece of information, and all and the entire public gets the benefit of that public opinion from the city attorney. But here, it's pretty well written. Here, city attorney may publish legal opinions. Okay, so that's a public thing. And where it says in the previous sentence, and shall not act as legal counsel for any city employee or any person having custody of any public record for the purposes of denying access of the public. That is the crux of.
So one of the questions we have to answer here is whether access was denied or whether just records just didn't exist. And that remains something that I'm unclear about. But it isn't necessarily an overall problem that the city attorney gives legal advice. It's just when it relates to denying access to the public. Right? Am I understanding correctly?
Before Member Josh Wolf, I'll let DCA Kohler.
Through the chair, I'd advise the task force not to go down a rabbit hole as to whether or not the city attorney advised the department to not provide access to records. We've been through that before, and I think it's pretty clear that the city attorney has a right to advise and to give advice to city departments, regardless of whether or not that conflicts with 6721I. This is about a records request where there's a dispute over what records were furnished. Now, I think you should just go through each enumerated item and find out whether or not it was properly responded to. Let's not make this a 6121I issue, because you're going to debate this forever, and it's going to be way longer than it needs to be.
Member Josh Wolf, then Member Moss.
All right, I think I'm going to say what our city attorney said in just a different language, actually, which is that we can only go off of whatever evidence we have of what advice the city attorney may have given. And what Mr. Williams cited was this line that said, I did in fact speak with the city attorney, who confirmed that I should help assist you in getting the requested records. So I think we have evidence that the city attorney actually didn't violate 6721I. And at this point, we don't have any actual evidence to the contrary. So I think we should move on to the 6724E at this point.
Member Moss.
And I agree with that point. And I would also, now that having heard both of you speak, if if you were going to allege a 6721I violation, it wouldn't be against the Arts Commission, it would be against the city attorney, and the city attorney is not a party here. It's not a named party in this case.
Right. I guess the only thing that raises the flag for me was that at the beginning of Mr. Williams' testimony, he said that the initial response was not from the Arts Commission, but from the city attorney. That's the initial response? That's from Kate Patterson. It's not from the city attorney. Okay, Mr. Williams, can you clarify, just for edification, we don't have any records that show a response from the city
There is a record, and I can.
Is it on a page in our?
For it. Yeah, it's in the CAP file, the Compliance Amendments Committee, 184 to 191, and it's from Mr. Deputy City Attorney Nicholas Cola. He filed a response from the City Attorney's Office in behalf of an employee, Ms. Patterson.
Wait, Nick Cole is
me. That's the advice memo.
Okay, that's the advice. Okay, but you are a member of the City Attorney's Office.
That's me.
He's our legal counsel.
Well, all I go by is what I've read of what the ordinance says. And what the ordinance says is that under Section 6721I, the San Francisco City Attorney's Office shall act to protect and secure the rights of the people of San Francisco to access public information and public meetings, and shall not act as legal counsel for any city employee or any person having custody of any public record for purposes of denying access to the public.
Let me ask you a question. On page 244, is that what you're referring to?
Well, on this one, it's from this packet. It is from, let's see, 244. Let me look at yours here. Correct.
Okay, so that's a memorandum to us.
It's coming from...
But to us. To us.
For Miss...
No. That is...
So the response that came from her was hers, and the one that went to you was from him,
yes,
Mr. Cola.
That's right.
Okay, I got it.
That is, we get every one of our cases.
So it's like a issue memorandum.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's our
Well,
just
the public
advice.
doesn't know that.
It's
I
our
got
legal
you.
advice.
It's advice to you.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
I
Okay.
got you.
Just so we're clear. Okay.
Got you.
Great. Okay. Next, Member Moss.
Sure. So I believe this is a count 2, part 2, if I'm reading the numbering right. So this is 6724E. And this is saying the supervising custodian of records, Kate Patterson, failed to produce records for which the Arts Commission lease agreement for rental of the Ruth Williams Bayview Opera House required immediate disclosure of all documents, including those related to bid and award of contracts. The procurement information was due the next business day. Rather than comply, the supervising custodian of records illegally invoked the 14-day California Public Records Act in direct contravention of 6724 subsection G, H, and I. So this is the IDR element and the question of the 14 versus the 10 days. Is that a correct summary? I see member testifies head nodding, so I think that.
Okay. Any discussion? Anything?
Well, I have an issue with everybody coming in, not everybody, but a lot of respondents coming in and saying, well, we exercised a 14-day extension, which it's not their right to do. So I think that is a violation of the ordinance.
Okay. Member Josh Wolf.
I mean, I think you're right, Member Kenyatta, but I think that's actually literally the next count.
Okay.
So I think that what we need to look at with count 2 is whether or not this lease agreement was ever turned over, because the timeliness element is the next count.
Okay. And what I remember of the lease agreements, and correct me if I'm wrong, but either party, is that the Arts Commission said that they didn't have all the lease agreements because the Opera House did leases on their own. So that was the Arts Commission's response.
Great, and because it's not a 12L and it's not, the Arts Commission doesn't have the records. They're not required to turn over records. They don't have, if it was a complaint filed against the Bayview Opera House, we could be looking at that, but I think we need to move on to count 3 for the reasons you just outlined. Or, first count. We need to move past count 2 too. Yeah.
6725 now is what we're
Okay, so my apologies for mischaracterizing this. So same thing I said before, but for 6720 for count 3 about the 10 days versus the 14 days.
Right.
That I agree with that. We've heard from 3 people now that seem to identify a potential violation there.
So should we ask the respondent about that? Sure. Ms. Patterson.
Thank you. I
All right,
appreciate.
explain 10 days versus 14 days here.
Well, under the advice of the city attorney, I believe that I was well within my right to incur a 14-day extension, under state law. So maybe you should check it with your city attorney. But I thought that was totally lawful. And I know that other departments also do the same thing. So if it's a conflict that you have with the city attorney's advice, maybe you guys can figure that out. Because I feel like it puts city staff in a tough position when we're given legal advice by the city attorney, and that we feel could be upheld in a court. That's state law, and then to get a different story here. So.
Anybody? All right. The only thing I'll say about that is the California Public Records Act allows local agencies to provide enhancement for efficiency and expediency of public records disclosure, which is how this Sunshine Ordinance in San Francisco came to be. So 10 days is sooner than 14 days, and that's the expediency part. Member Josh Wolf.
To whatever extent members of the city attorney staff are advising departments of this, sounds like it's an EOTC thing that needs to happen with the city attorney's office.
Okay.
And also in 6725B, it specifically says that warrants an extension of 10 days as provided in the government code. And it gives the code, 6456.1.
They don't agree with each other.
That code. That's an outdated code section.
Okay. Yeah, the CPRA has been amended several times since then. But the provision for local agencies still remains.
Mm-hmm. All right. What's the next one?
Okay, so we're dispensing with that one and moving along, or what do we?
Well, I'm suggesting there's a violation.
Okay, so I'm just going to make a note on my
right,
just to come back in a possible violation there. Sorry, I'm trying to take notes and read these out for you guys. Okay, so now we're on to count 4. This is for 6726. This is a violation occurred because the custodian of records withheld all records from the complainant in their entirety, including those that admittedly were not exempt. This act substantially failed to keep withholding of records to a minimum. So for 67, sorry, I'm jumping around here. Somebody else wants to grab it, that's fine. I'm just trying to...
6726 is pretty basic. No record should be withheld from disclosure in its entirety unless all information contained in it is exempt from disclosure under express provisions of CPRA or of some other statute. I mean, it goes on. So for me, the question here is this one states that all records, I believe certain information was given, and the information that wasn't given, you get into it's not ours, it's the opera house's. So,
Member Josh Wolf.
I mean, yeah, it sounds like as long as they didn't actually have the information in their possession, there's no requirement for them to get it. So it seems to me that we should move on to the next one and that there isn't a good cause to note a violation here unless one of my colleagues disagrees. And seeing no disagreement, can we move to the next one?
Sure. So we're on count 5 now. This is for 67.50, which is, just trying to bring it down here so everybody's on the right page. Actually, I don't have that handy. No exempt records were requested in the IDR, and the supervising custodian of records has not asserted that any of the records do not exist or they are exempt and thus not public.
Okay, so there is no 6750.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what's going on with that.
So let's ask the petitioner.
Yes. Ms. Patterson cited.
Wait a second. This says section 6750.
Yes.
There is no 6750. It
Well,
only
the
goes up-
council put 6750, so I just went with that as an ETSEC for
Council
that government
put
code. But the real deal here is the citation was to 6253 as a basis for withholding all of the documents for 14 days. If you go to the ordinance, it says that you will not cite anything under the government code that preempts the immediacy requirement. And the other point was the fact that they invoked a 14-day, despite 6724E, bids and contracts are immediately disclosable. Ms. Patterson had the opportunity to produce those documents that were readily available that are stated under the ordinance, under that provision. And she contained them all under the 14 days before they would release any of them. If you look at 6724E, it's immediate disclosure, and it has a special provision. It says documents that must be disclosed.
All right. I just want to give a clarification. That's CPRA section 6750.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So
let me bring up the California Public Records
So
Act.
I think the crux of the argument here is that even if an extension is requested, regardless 14 days, 10 days from an IDR, the information should be produced on a rolling basis. So if you have information readily available, that information should be produced immediately while the others that you need time to gather are being gathered.
Yes.
It's not meant to say we're going to go 10 days out and give you everything. Even though we have half of it now, we're going to give it all to you on the 10th.
So this is the way it works, verbatim. So it says that and I'll just start in the middle of the sentence. That city and county shall produce any and all responsive records as soon as reasonably possible on an incremental or, quote, rolling, unquote, basis, such that responsive records are produced as soon as possible by the end of the same business day that they are reviewed and collected. So as soon as you find them, you review them, you make sure those are the right ones.
And that's
6725D.
Yeah.
Member
Okay.
Josh Wolf.
Through the chair, should we allow the respondent to address that?
If you wish for that to be.
Go ahead.
Go for it.
Can you speak to if you complied with the part of the CPRA that Chair Wolf just read, and if not, why not?
Yeah, so it took me the full 14 days to gather all the documents, to review them. And remember, there were 26 items. I then organized them by number and enumerated them, created files for them so I could easily transfer them. Some of them were very large to transfer. It took me the full 14 days to review all the files.
So, but my read of what Chair Wolf just read is that you said it took you that long to get all the files, but some of those files they didn't all come in one email attachment. They came in a certain order, and you elected to deal with all of it at once, it sounds like, to review it and make sure you had everything, but they didn't come in all in one.
They did come in all at once. Like, I reviewed them, I wrote a response to go along with the records, I compiled a giant letter to go along with, I wanted it to be all organized, I had to make sure everything was redacted. It took the full 14 days to get all of the whole packet together in a way that where I would have a record that was sort of easily referable to, if that's even a word. So it took the full 14 days.
But did you have any materials in your possession for more than one business day? Because what I just heard read means that the rolling basis requires that.
I understand what you're saying, and it's possible, but I might have had them, but I might not have reviewed them. I did multiple reviews to make sure that we were meeting all of the various numbers. I talked to staff. I had to redact them. I had to create new files for the redacted file. I mean, all of that. It took the full 14 days.
Great, thank you.
And I just want to, can I ask a question? I'm confused now because I thought that the 14-day extension was under the California law.
So the 14 days is under California law. California law, state law, allows
Right, exactly.
local agencies to provide more expediency and efficiency.
Right, okay, so, but it seems to me, because some of this is California law, so I just want to make sure that if you're going with California law, but then finding me in violation for invoking the 14-day extension, that just seems a little incongruous.
The Sunshine Ordinance takes precedent in this, in where it provides the enhancement.
Okay, so
we're not referring to we start with the CPRA and we end with the Sunshine Ordinance.
Okay, that's helpful, thanks.
Ready for the next one?
Okay, I just want to make a quick notation. It's CPRA is 6250, not 6750.
And do we generally want to make a note of that one, or move forward without making a note on that one?
I mean, it doesn't seem any different than the previous ones to me.
The only reference, I think, to CPRA in here is just around whether the records were exempt or not. It's not, I don't think it's necessarily asserting a violation, and I don't think the Arts Commission is asserting that any of these documents are privileged or confidential. So I don't see how this applies at this point.
Okay. So I think we're on to count 7 now. Am I, or have I?
Count 6.
Count 6.
Okay. So count 6 is very similar to count 5. For the same reasons noted before, citation to section 6253 of the, I'm going to say that's probably the California Public Records Act, cites improper authority and is further invalid because the authority precluded by section 6726. All the public records were withheld despite none being exempt from disclosure. I mean, this one is confusing to me again because there were public records disclosed.
I mean, I think that we could talk to the respondent, but it sounds like the argument is essentially saying this doesn't make I'm going out on a limb here, and we should hear from the complainant, but that 6253 in itself is voided because of the Sunshine Records, the local law. Like there is an argument that because 6253 is where the 14 days comes from, that it's citing improper authority and is further invalid because that authority is precluded by the Sunshine Ordinance 6726, which I'm not 100% sure what is in 6726. Mr. Williams, can you explain what you're trying to say in count 6?
Simple, that the 14-day extension should not have been invoked because the provision of the Government Code 6253 cited only applies where there are all the records that are being requested are exempt. Law enforcement, and I read about if there were documents that would involve an investigation, those are exempt. What she cited to invoke it was a blanket that they cannot be produced. We have to invoke something that is not exempt, but we're going to hold them all the records for 14 days.
Right. Great. Thanks. So I'm hearing this as another timeliness way of quantifying the timeliness violation, and typically we identify like one area of the timeliness violation. So that's where I'm inclined to go. But
I agree. Right now I've got 6725B and D. So.
Okay, just for clarification, and I think this is where Ms. Patterson is getting the 10 days and the 14 days from. In this section in 6753C, the very first sentence talks about 6253C, talks about within 10 days of receipt of the request, that notification that records exist is supposed to go to the person making the request. Thereafter, the agency cannot invoke more than a date that's more than 14 days as part of an extension.
But that's still superseded by Sunshine.
That's right.
Yeah.
So I just want to be clear that Sunshine has created a more expedient provision than what is in the CPRA for this section. So 6253C is, you could apply it as part of just a standard 6721 request, but when we have the Sunshine, the voters have created this immediate disclosure request process to create more expediency, and that supersedes this section. So hopefully that makes a little more sense of what why you have 10 days in one sentence and 14 days in another sentence in the same paragraph. They're two different functions, and the Sunshine Ordinance, for the purposes of 6725 IDRs, the response must be by the end of the next business day, and the extension cannot be more than 10 days.
Right, on a rolling basis.
And then on a rolling basis, yes. Okay, next.
Okay, so this final one is says the 7th-month delay. Well, so basically he's asking, and I don't want to oversimplify, but the allegation is that this is a willful violation and should be considered official misconduct, and under our rules that goes to, I think, the Ethics Committee to be handled. And I think that is the reasoning here is that this has taken 7 months, and that's the allegation. Maybe, and I don't, if I'm overstating, let me know. But the allegation is that maybe the Arts Commission has been feet dragging, and that's why it's taken so long. Personally, I mean, we've so rarely brought up something for a willful violation, and that they tend to be very, very egregious cases. I'm not convinced at this point this is a willful violation. Somebody else wants to make the case.
I don't know if I want to make a case, but under our new agreement with ethics, we can send stuff to ethics that's not willful.
That is correct, but
so that would be another option to be discussed.
But only for the purpose of enforcement.
For the purpose of enforcement. Okay.
And if that's your desire, that's this body's desire.
He is also free to refile this with the Ethics Commission, as well as I understand it. So I mean,
Member Josh Wolf. Member Josh Wolf.
So I hate to sort of rewind this thing all the way back to the beginning and open this can of worms again, but most of these violations, or a lot of the information he doesn't have, pertains to the fact that this started off as a records request to the opera itself, and somehow now we're dealing with the Arts Commission, who chose to respond to it. But in many ways, some of these issues that he cites in past arguments don't apply to the Arts Commission at all. But if this had remained with the Bayview Opera House, might have applied, and I don't know what to do about that other than to say that we can always hear a future case at a later point to whatever extent that's necessary. But there is this sort of, we've split this down this weird way, and now we're following that track, which at this point, based on what I'm hearing, it sounds like there's a timeliness violation that we have consensus around, and most of the other things we're not really relating with. But we've totally sidelined the whole Section 12 stuff.
Wait a minute. I thought this case was Williams v. Patterson and the Arts Commission.
It is because Patterson responded to a public records request that was sent to the Opera House.
Right, but he brought this complaint against the Arts Commission, not against the Opera House.
Right. But to whatever extent, that's why...
If he presented it against the Opera House, that would be that we'd have a meeting. Right?
I completely realize that. What I'm trying to say is to communicate to the complainant that, like, a lot of these violations that he's citing don't relate to the Arts Commission.
Okay.
But if you were to pursue this with the Opera House, we would have a different set of lenses to look through.
Okay, thanks. Member Kanata, do you have something to add?
No, I'm fine.
Okay. All right. Shall we move to rebuttals? Is there anything else on this? Okay, let's have rebuttals. Ms. Patterson, you're first respondent. Just 3 minutes for rebuttal.
I think Member Wolf sort of hit the nail on the head. I think that Mr. Williams has a lot of issues with the Bayview Opera House and its management and how it's run and its programming, issues that we at the Arts Commission, we've heard, and we are taking steps to deal with those or encourage them to deal with them. But the fact of the matter is that the Bayview Opera House, while the Arts Commission owns the building, it's run by an independent 501c3. And the Arts Commission can only be responsible for the documents that it has in its possession. And, and those documents were turned over. Everything I had in my possession, I turned it over to Mr. Williams in good faith and in compliance with the Sunshine Ordinance. And I still think, however, there is this persistent conflation of the two entities and where the responsibility lies for certain records. And we simply do not have some of the records that he's requested. Some of the records are in the possession of other city departments, so he may choose to pursue those separately as well. So I just want to say that if you looked through this letter and you went through each of the items, you'll see that in most cases, I did turn over the records that we had, and I also where in this latest letter tried to identify records that the Opera House may have. I don't know if they have them. Again, they're an independent entity, and I also, in cases where I had to redact personal information, I also cited the proper legal justification. So there's no willful withholding documents on the part of the Arts Commission. We have tried to be as transparent as possible and turning over these records. This was a voluminous request. There were a lot of moving parts. I did my best to make sure that everything was in order so that it would be received in a way that was comprehensible and not helter-skelter. And I really feel that I really tried my best to get Mr. Williams what he needed. And exactly the point is that I think that a lot of the issues related to this particular case have to do with the Bayview Opera House and not necessarily the Arts Commission and the records that we have.
Hello. My name is Barbara Mumby. I'm the Director of Community Investments. So part of my purview is overseeing the Bayview Opera House contract. So what we own the building, the city owns the building, we lease the building to the 501c that is housed in the building. They're independent. They do their own programming within the mission under 501c directives. We have been working with Mr. Williams to address some of the issues he has that's outside of the purview of the Sunshine Task Force. I agree with Kate Patterson about the conflation between what is our purview and what's theirs. So we are working on that outside of this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Williams, 3 minutes.
The building says Bayview Opera House. I don't know how many of you live in an apartment or a house, but when somebody spends $3.1 million on your house and you don't know who did it, you should be able to describe into some degree of detail where the money came from. Did it fall from the sky? The Opera House, the Arts Commission is saying to someone at least of moderate intelligence that it doesn't know on its building that it owns where $3.1 million of taxpayer money went. That concerns me as someone who has lived and paid taxes as a homeowner for 60 years here in the city and county of San Francisco. That's the quintessential issue of open government, a right to know. Taxpayers spent $5.6 million to date, 7 months later. They cannot tell me or any member of the community where $3.1 million is. Go here, go there. But they can direct them to do things in other areas. Take a look. I just got an email. The Arts Commission has required the Bayview Opera House to convene a meeting for the community. If they can require them to convene a meeting for the community, they can be required to show where the $3.1 million went. Now, Member Moss, I don't know about you in terms of what you consider to be a critical issue. I would say $3.1 million of taxpayer dollars unaccounted for is critical. And it raises some ethical issues. That is why I brought them in. There are other things that they are hiding. And they're coming here to insult the intelligence of a highly intelligent body, including one over on this side too, that they cannot tell you where $3.1 million went. Mr. Williams should, I've done all I could do. He should go here, he should go there. But we can't tell them. They're independent. Look at those emails from their boss, Tom DeCaney, and ask yourself, if he told them to do it tomorrow, would Ms. Okel do it? Thank you.
Okay, members. Is there a motion or more discussion? Need more information?
I definitely think there's a violation of 6725B and D, but I'm open to more discussion.
I was ready for moving forward on a motion, but can someone remind me, because I know we went through this in a previous meeting, the Arts Commission owns the building. They lease it to the Bayview Opera House, which is a 501c3 nonprofit, but the complainant hasn't received a copy of the lease. How did we come up? Does anyone remember how it ended up that the Arts Commission doesn't have a copy of the lease for the building they lease out?
I believe the Arts Commission provided a lease, but they didn't. The millions of dollars that is not accounted for, the Arts Commission is saying they don't have that information because there was not one budget item for the reconstruction or whatever they did to the Opera House. They said that they provided a third of it or 2/3 of where the money was gone, but the rest of it was spent by other city departments, and that Mr. Williams would have to go to other city departments.
Okay, but he did eventually get a copy of the lease.
I believe so. Yeah, and he did.
Okay.
I waived anything else. I'm talking about money now.
Great. I was just couldn't remember what happened with the lease.
Mm-hmm.
I'm happy to second your motion if you're ready to make it.
Is there anybody else have any other? I'll make the motion then.
Go for it.
Violation of 6725B and D. B
Is
and
that
D.
regarding timeliness?
It's the timeliness, and it's not providing the data on a rolling basis.
Go for it. Let's get a second first.
We have a second of Member Josh Wolf.
Member Josh, okay, go ahead.
So, through the chair, are you, like, what kind of, maybe I should be asking you, Chair Wolf, I mean, what would the follow-up to, is this just for the record, and we need to put this in the record, or is there going to be some kind of follow-up to this further? I just don't see how much more the Arts Commission can do or how much further there is on this. If you're just saying, let's get this in the record, then yeah, I'll vote for it. But
I'm saying that it needs to go in the record because I believe there was a violation. I think Mr. Williams, personally, I think he should go to the Opera House and demand and ask them for all their information, and then if they don't comply,
that's out of our jurisdiction, though, right?
12L.
12L. It is within 12.
Yes.
All right, then.
So
okay.
Sunshine for nonprofits.
Yeah, I know. I just
But just to remind
feel like it's been working.
all parties that the request for information would be under the jurisdiction of 12L and not under Sunshine, which there are certain limits to the type of information they're required to provide.
Yeah, I know. I used to work for I was on the board of a 12L organization. I remember. But it's just we can't, it's out of, we don't have let me pose this as a question. So clearly we're spinning our wheels here because we don't have as much jurisdiction to compel the Bayview Opera House to produce these records. Is this what's
the way
going on
12L
here?
works is that they can make a request to the Opera House. If they have a complaint about the information that they receive, that complaint is reviewed by the department who administers the contract for the Opera House. And if they do not agree with that, they can ask the task force to review the recommendation of the Arts Commission. However, it is, I believe it's a review of information only, and we can only provide a recommendation. We don't have very much authority in that case.
Obviously, we can't trot in the Opera House here. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, it's an advisory opinion of the Sunshine Task Force.
Okay.
If it was
Carry
a
on.
12L issue.
Thanks.
Okay, anything else? Should we go to public comment? Okay, comment on the motion.
I would like to say a long time ago, when we fought for the Sunshine Task Force, we did the right thing. At the Ethics Commission, they believe y'all are screwballs. I do not believe that. And here is one reason. Many of y'all must go and visit the Bayview Opera House. And many of y'all should read about District 10. When an African-American woman went to the director and asked her to rent the Bayview Opera House, she said, "We do not rent to goons and animals." At other times, when some African-Americans want to rent the Opera House, they are said or they are quoted $4,000, and it ends up, they end up paying $6,000. So when we had this complaint, we had to take an avenue, and there were many avenues, discrimination, whatever. But we decided to follow the money. So anybody who has access to, say, GuideStar, you can go and get all the 990s and see what is their mission objective, which is drama, and what are they using the Opera House for, which is economic development. So we have people in the Opera House who work for the Opera House who are buying properties for development, using the Opera House for things that they are not supposed to do, aided and abetted by the Arts Commission. The Arts Commission is it's very easy for them to say, it's the purview of the Opera House. The Opera House is for the people. The Arts Commission has leased the Opera House for $1. What lease agreement do you want? For that $1, even to get some space outside the Opera House, we have to pay $1,600 and more. We always got the Opera House inside and outside at one time for free. I donated over 150 chairs and many tables to the Opera House. So I know, I used to use the Opera House, and we did a lot of good work with the Opera House. Ever since the Art Commission took over the Opera House, all sorts of nefarious activities have been happening. Missing in this equation is that when the Opera House was closed for 6 years, over 30 African Americans were killed. They would be using the Opera House. They would be using the Joseph Lee Gym. Then the only upgrade was a rock garden and some chairs behind the Opera House. Nothing much was done to the Opera House itself. We want to know where the over $6 million have gone. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other comment on the motion?
Go ahead.
You
can't comment.
Hey.
I don't know what that is. Here, you've heard testimony from Kate Patterson over and over again, who probably spends more time in front of the task force than any other low-level city employee. And what you hear over and over again is that she doesn't know the Sunshine Ordinance. She doesn't know or understand even what it is. Every time she comes in here, you lecture to her on a different section, and she'll say, oh, really? I mean, come on. She doesn't understand that the Sunshine Ordinance supersedes other parts of the law. There's something fundamentally wrong here. And by issuing the many, many violations against her, and there could be up to 15 by now, you need to refer these type of complaints back down to subcommittee, because you have individuals who, while they get orders, they spend a lot of time at this, they essentially don't get the documents that they need. Here, this complaint would never even have been brought forward had she known or understand the ordinance. She chose to respond to it. That was the first mistake, and then it was downhill from there. The only difference is she's dealing with a former city employee who knows and understands the law, not a simple street artist. And I'm thankful this time that she didn't make smart remarks about me being the peanut gallery and how she was going to walk out. That was the last hearing I attended, and then run up and whisper into Mr. Young's ear. There's something fundamentally wrong here, and it's Kate Patterson.
Members, may I?
No.
Purely advisory?
Oh.
Okay, sir. Go ahead.
Okay. Anything else for the good of cause? Okay, please call roll.
Can we remove the thing from the overhead?
Sure. I'm sorry.
On that motion, Member Kanata.
Aye.
Kanata, aye. Member Josh Wolf.
Aye.
Wolf, aye. Member Moss.
Aye.
Moss, aye. Member Fisher.
Aye.
Fisher, aye. Member Hinsey. Hinsey, aye. Vice Chair Hyland.
Aye.
Hyland, aye. Member Eldon. Eldon, aye. Copra, absent. Member Tesfa.
Aye.
Tesfa, aye. Chair Wolf.
Aye.
Wolf, aye. The motion passes.
Please call next item.
Next on the agenda, item number 8, file number 17135, hearing to determine if Administrative Code Section 6721 regarding the legality of a named respondent in a public records request who is in custody of records, transferring the responsibility of fulfilling the request to another member of staff without notifying the requester is a legal practice. I believe at the last meeting, several options were suggested.
Okay.
The committee.
So I'll pick it up from here. So I attempted to make contact with various people. I did get one response, of which we were still in discussion because he kept bringing up the CPRA provisions and not the Sunshine provisions. That was former SOTF member David Snyder, who's now with the First Amendment Coalition. So we're still having discussion with that. I did try to contact Terry Frankie, who is one of the framers, who has been on an extended out-of-town, been out of town, so I don't know when he's going to come back. So, and I've not heard back from any others. So as far as where we stand on this, it's a little bit more of of disagreeing whether somebody did something or didn't do something. This is more about how we interpret the actual ordinance itself. And we tried to come to some agreement with several actions that had failed. I don't anticipate that we're going to have much luck if we try to do that again. And I think that it just demands to try and get a real legal opinion on this in some way, shape, or form. Because everybody has a different interpretation. There are like 3 different interpretations. So I think it's very clear when somebody does something or doesn't do something. If the respondent by name shows up and does or doesn't do something, that's, that makes it easy. If they don't show up because the item was given to the agency, and the agency did or didn't do something that references somebody who is a custodian, they're a representative. So that's another aspect of it. So I'm not confident that we can do anything in resolving the interpretation of this today, unless somebody else has a different sensibility about it. And I would just as well move on. Okay. So, sorry? I don't think it's necessary to continue the item at this time. I think unless you feel strongly that we want to get a real opinion, then I think we can identify. We can have DCA COLA chime in on this, and if you want somebody else to chime in on this, we could do it any which ways you want to do it. Yes, Member Josh Wolf.
I feel like we had a way that we were interpreting this, and then we sort of opened the box and we're trying to figure it out. And right now we're basically saying we can't reach a conclusion at this point. But I would feel more comfortable continuing the item, even if it doesn't get revisited, than to close it out with this not being resolved one way or the other.
Okay. That's fine. Is there any objections to that? No. Okay. Then I'll just continue the item, and we'll, as the issue, if an issue comes up, or if there seems to be some clear interpretation of this that presents itself, then we'll put it on the agenda.
So it's my understanding this matter will, I do not see any members of the public in the room. It's my understanding this matter will be continued to the call of the chair, but I'd just like to advise the task force that we do have 3 complaints pending an answer to this question.
3 pending?
It's the 3 complaints filed by Mary Miles against 3 separate people at the Department of the Municipal Transportation Agency.
Through the chair, haven't we heard that one?
That was heard. However, we could not decide this question, and we could not make a decision.
But it was only on this particular question.
Yes.
It wasn't on the other questions. I think we did take some action in that case. I think we took action in I'll have to review my notes, but I think didn't we take action in that, but not on this question?
We continue that item until we can determine an answer to this question, because the whole decision of those 3 complaints are based on making this determination.
Okay. All right. Okay. Then let's move on.
Next on the agenda is item number 9, Sunshine Ordinance Task Force Annual Report.
Okay. So I didn't get to send the email out so that Victor could receive it to put it in the agenda. So I think what I'll have to do, I'll have the drafts sent. I'll send it to Victor. He'll send it to all of us, and then we'll bring it up at the next meeting. I don't anticipate the Board of Supervisors holding a Rules Committee quickly for the reappointments or the appointments before then. So we'll have it for the next meeting. But at least you'll get to read it, and if you have anything to add or any suggestions, please get them to Victor, and he'll get them to me, and then we'll compile it in there. I apologize for that. Okay, next item.
Next on the agenda is item 10, report from the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force Committees.
Okay, Complaint Committee, anything to report? Compliance and amendments, anything to report? Education outreach training?
We had a meeting for the first time in a while, and things went well. One of the cases was heard here. That's all I got.
Okay. Rules Committee has not met, right? Okay. And IT Ad Hoc Committee has not met either.
But you will need to appoint a new chair to that before too long.
Yep, will do.
I would just like to point out there was a suggested hearing topic for the next Compliance and Amendments Committee meeting, which I will need some clarification on. Hearing digital service consolidation in the city and county of San Francisco in regards to websites, upgrades, and bringing up standards to meet the Sunshine Ordinance requirements. I'm not sure who to invite and so forth. This was a suggestion from several months ago.
So this was for the digital services manager that was newly hired this past year, who's been going through every single website in the city to assure she's very up on Sunshine. She really likes this, that we have a really strong one here. She comes from London, and did a good job, I understand, there. So I thought maybe it'd be a good idea to have her come to your committee, and you can have discussion with her about compliance and whatnot, what she plans on doing or what she is doing. I've noticed many websites now have an area for index of records, and how that's all being applied, that kind of stuff. So, we can have her Victor contact her and make an arrangement.
Who's this person?
I can't remember her name at this moment.
I will contact you later on that.
Okay. Yeah, I'll get it for you. I believe I sent it to you, but
I will see if she's available to attend on that date, or one of her representatives.
Yeah. Her name is, actually, I got it right here.
And is there any specific questions that you would like to pose? Because that's usually what they ask me.
Yeah, Carrie Bishop is her name. She's the Chief Digital Services Officer. Yeah, and we'll, so I would say anybody who has any questions about that, especially from our IT folks or anybody else that uses online, what have you, get the, send it to Victor, and Victor will get it to.
I would like it by Friday morning if possible, because this is a short timeline.
When's the next CSU meeting?
Approximately 13 days from now.
Oh, okay. So,
on the 20th.
Okay. Well, if you have any burning questions. Otherwise, you can feel free to show up at the committee. Member testify.
Does she cover any issues related to the next request system and how it's being rolled out?
No.
Okay.
We had those folks come and present before us, and that's a different department.
Okay.
I believe there is a request. I believe the complaint committee did request that we conduct a hearing on the next request system, and I was going to do a test run and print out all the emails I get back from it. I'm working with the Arts Commission on it.
Okay.
I'm going to test it and, try to break it and see what happens.
And if member testify, if you want to have them come to the complaint committee and, give us a little more deeper.
It'll be great to review what Victor's findings are and then move forward from there.
Okay, great. So if you can invite them to the next complaint committee meeting, that'd be great.
I may need a little bit more time than that.
Okay, that's fine. When you're ready, when it's ready. Okay, next item
is the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force Chair's report.
I have nothing to report at this time. Is there anything anybody would like for me to look into or do? Is there anything any requests? Okay, seeing none. Yep.
I don't know whether earlier it was brought up that according to the Arts Commission, city attorneys are advising of the 14-day thing, and I had said maybe that was an EOTC thing. Does anyone have any thoughts on what, if anything, we should do to address that, or should we just assume that that's actually an idiosyncratic issue and not a systemic one?
I would say, I would only say if there's confusion among us. I mean, in what sense, what kind of, let me take that back. What outcome are you looking to?
Well, if I take Ms. Patterson at her word, the city attorney's office is advising departments that they have the ability to do a 14-day extension under the CPRA and not following what the Sunshine Ordinance allows. And so to whatever means we have to have a conversation with, you know, obviously we're not going to get Herrera in here, but like whoever whoever's making that decision from the top down to filter it to these departments so that it stops filtering down to them.
Go forth and prosper.
Okay, I'll work with Victor on an agenda item for the EOTC.
I believe this is one of our long-standing discussions regarding our input into the Good Government Guide, which I believe it does state the 14 days in the Good Government Guide. And in the training, the annual training,
Right.
This is something that the task force has been wanting to have additional input on.
Right, because it only mentions agencies, it doesn't mention individual custodians. Right. And so it refers mostly to CPRA than to the ordinance.
Yeah, I think that also with 6725 IDR, there's this vague language that says maximum deadlines provided in this article are appropriate for more extensive and demanding requests. And I think we read that properly as, you know, constraining to the Sunshine Ordinance, whereas that may be interpreted differently by the city attorney's office.
So, yeah, any clarification the committee wants to explore and, you know, present? Sure.
Okay.
All right. Next item.
Next on the agenda, item number 12, Administrator's Report. I have a listing of the next meetings, compliance and amendments on March 20th, complaint on March 27th, and then I have the listing for the next few meetings. If there's anybody who cannot attend upcoming meetings, please let me know, and I will try to get a replacement.
Victor?
I believe you're on the Education, Outreach, and Training Committee.
EOT, and when does that meet?
April 17th. And I know that will bring up the question as to
And when
membership.
Is Rules Committee?
We don't have a Rules Committee meeting.
Yes.
No, I'm sorry. I mean, when are our terms up?
I believe it's April 27th. However, parties will be able to continue on a holdover basis. If you're not willing to continue, please let me know as soon as possible, because that will affect our ability to meet in the near future. I will send out a poll regarding this matter shortly.
Frequently, the board doesn't get around to it till sometimes May.
Yeah, two years ago it was June.
I'm just, I'm just replaying that scene in The Godfather, just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in. Yeah.
Okay.
I have a listing of several new.
I've lived it.
I have a listing of several new complaints. I would like to know there was one that I could not accept because they did not provide me contact information. In addition to that, I have received referrals of complaints from the Ethics Commission. As there's no procedure for that, I have adopted the process of contacting the complainant, asking them if they would like to file a complaint with the task force before opening a file. I don't know if there's any disagreement with that or not, but I just wanted to ask them before I open a file referred from another agency.
I'm sorry. So
say it again.
Yeah.
Well, the Ethics Commission sent me two complaints. Before opening the file, I contacted those petitioners because I didn't want to just open a complaint without their permission.
So they're trying to open a complaint with ethics directly? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, and Ethics didn't believe that they believe that the complaint should have gone to Sunshine, and I contact them before I open a file.
Right. Under the new rules, when they determine that, they'll refer it to the Sunshine Task Force. So he's asking, should we just, take it and schedule it, or should he ask the?
Do we know if ethics procedure is to ask the complainant if that's okay?
I do not believe they've done so. They just send it to me.
Yeah, Member Josh Wolf.
Because we have a process that requires the complainant to appear at the hearing, and if for some reason they don't appear, it could eventually be expunged. I think we need to get their sign on, because otherwise, like, they could be strategically wanting to wait and file a sunshine complaint when they're like back in the country or something. So I think we do need to get a communication with them before turning their ethics referral into a sunshine complaint.
So we have received a referral from the Ethics Commission of your complaint that it falls within our jurisdiction more than ethics. Would you like to proceed with a hearing with us?
It sounds like Victor has a process that he's been using, and I trust whatever he's saying.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that that's what's...
All I'm saying is having Victor contact them before putting them on our rolls.
Okay, it sounds like nobody's...
No objection.
To it.
Looks like we have a little downtrend in complaints filed. We went from 48 down to 40. We have 2 items pending before the committees. The one regarding the planning department, I would like to contact them prior to scheduling, as I would like to get a process. I would like to make sure that they have an answer before scheduling, before the committee. And then there's a list of 3 pending items. One of them is the next request issue, or the next request public hearing.
Isn't 17-110 the same as the next request?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
I happen to create a new file.
Oh, okay.
And then I will be adding to this list the item of the custodian of records.
And in 16-117, didn't Mr. Herrera retire?
He did retire. However, I believe this will just continue against the library.
Okay. Has there been any further discussion in the clerk's office about a database system?
We're still discussing the contract, trying to pin down a contractor.
Okay. All right.
And it's getting them to comply with our requirements is being difficult.
Is this an RFP already?
It's beyond the RFP.
Is the RFP available?
We've
for
reviewed
public?
the RFPs, the proposals.
Oh, okay.
And I believe we're talking to vendors about refining. I can get additional information.
Okay. Is the actual at this point is the actual RFP publicly available?
The proposal was online,
okay.
and we did accept proposals.
Okay.
And we did interview them and score them.
Can you send me the link?
I will try to get that.
Okay, great, thanks.
And then the Ray Hart item, that is one where we wanted to get additional opinions from outside members regarding the matter before rescheduling.
Right.
And that completes the report.
Okay.
And applications are due. Applications as soon as you're able. And Form 700s are deadlines is approaching.
Well, what is the deadline on the 700?
April 2nd.
April 2nd.
Yeah.
On the 700s, even though they're filled online, they have to be printed and brought in? Is that what you were saying?
No, actually for the application to the Rules Committee, they require a Form 700 to go along with your application.
Okay, I'll print that.
That's separate.
Right.
If we're not able to continue on the board, do we still need to go through that process?
Yes, you should still complete your Form 700 for April 2nd, and you'll need to complete another one as soon as you leave the board.
And it's asking about things you currently own, not anything you own during the year, correct?
I wouldn't be able to answer that.
I would call the Ethics Commission on that. They'll
The annual statement is due on April 2nd, but when you leave the board, you have to file a leaving office Form 700 also.
Even if it's like a month later, it's going to be this.
It's the same form, just change one line.
You change the date.
Different dates.
Yeah, be a different date, and that's
And
it.
you check the box to leaving office instead of annual.
So we have to do the whole online thing. I can't just
Everything
send-
is online.
I can't just PDF. I can't just send the PDF that I did for the state.
Everything's online.
Yeah.
And Victor, isn't the 700 looking back to the last year?
Yeah, it's the end of year report.
It's
For 17.
no, it's where you are now. It's this point in time for what.
But it's from the period of the
Covers the annual period.
the annual period.
So cover.
Yeah.
So if you dumped a lot of stock, you have to put all that in there?
No, only if you own the stock. You only put in stock you
Owned it
own.
at some point during the last fiscal year.
Then you have to
report
it. Okay.
Yeah.
Over a certain dollar amount, I believe.
Oh, there is an over a certain dollar amount.
Yeah,
Good.
it's over
'cause
like 2,000.
I've got like lots of $5 investments that have gone.
I don't know. I don't know how Bitcoin works either.
I've
on
had
this
it since I was, you know,
cryptocurrency.
How many people are leaving?
Negative.
All right, well, let's finish. We can talk at the announcement in the next item. We can talk about that.
sorry.
But let's just
That
finish
completes
this
my
up.
report.
The other deadline is for Sunshine Training,
That is still April 2nd.
April 2nd. So make sure you finish your Sunshine Training.
Annual training for both ethics and sunshine.
I didn't do that already?
Yeah, sexual harassment and harassment training. And
Harassment I did.
okay, and then there's the Sunshine Training
Yeah.
Form 700.
and Form
I want to do
700.
the sunshine before the end of December. I did it like December 27th.
Yeah, if you did
or
it then,
something.
it's done.
Yeah.
You just
I
need to
did,
fill
I
out the
did mine
form.
then too.
Well, the form is due by the end of the month, right?
The reason why it's confusing is because the Ethics Commission changed the deadlines so they all are on the same day. So it used to
first
be
year.
the end of the year previously. Now it's
Is
extended.
there, I know this is a lot of work, but is there any chance you could see who owes what and tell them? Or just tell me what I owe, because everybody else seems to be on top of this?
Everyone's going to need to resubmit this year.
Everything.
Yes.
Here's the easy answer. You owe everything. There you go.
But if you did it at
Flowers.
but if you did it at the end of last year, that's for this year.
I will distribute forms, and all you need to do is sign it.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you. And then one other question regarding the Form 700. So I understand we have to file that both by April 1st and on leaving office?
Yes.
Within 30 days of leaving office.
Within 30 days. So we will have to file it twice in a very short period of time.
Yes.
Or,
Wonderful. Thank you.
Or if you leave on your last day.
No,
it
I still
covers
have to
that.
do it by. I still have to do it by
Yeah.
April 1st. So.
Yeah, if it was May 2nd, then you only have to
But if
do
you did
once.
it by April 1st and you chose not to serve as a holdover, then you're covered.
Wait, no. I thought it's within 30 days after, not within 30 days before.
Right, 30 days, within 30 days after.
After, fair enough.
Yeah.
Right.
All right.
Okay.
Good try.
Yeah.
Anything else? Nothing? Okay, next item.
Announcements, comments, questions, and future agenda items.
I was just asking who's leaving, and I know you are for
I have to leave. I'm termed out. 6 years is the max. It's like being in the assembly.
So at this time, it's my understanding that Member Moss, Member Eldon, and Member Fisher will not be reapplying.
Yes, we're all running off together.
So
What committee are you forming? No, I'm just kidding.
if
We're going to Tahiti. We just wanted to go there.
if we currently live in San Francisco, but during our
We just wanted to
term
hang out
ended
for a
up
really
moving
long
to
time
Oakland,
without-
would
Oh, I
we
didn't
have
have
to
another
get the
Waiver.
and that would need to go through the rules committee? So from the time we moved out of the city till the rules committee, we would just be an empty.
But once you
seat.
leave the city, you would need to get reappointed with a waiver.
Okay.
Or maybe you can ask them to give you the waiver in advance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would ask
You're
Angela.
wavering in?
No, I'm anticipating a Ellis Act eviction, so you know. No, I think it's premature to go to rules and say I'm going to be Ellis Act evicted. That's just going to confuse everyone.
It shouldn't be much of a problem to reschedule. Since if you are reappointed and you are moving to Oakland, I don't see much of a time delay in getting that on the agenda to reconsider.
What happened to, what's his name? He used to sit right next to me. He was our lawyer guy. Mark. He moved.
He just moved. I don't think he was. Yeah.
I was in Oakland by the time I
Oh, okay.
They do it at the same time.
They needed more body stuff.
Because I have a friend that works here but is moving to Oakland and she really wants to serve. Could do a waiver?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
do it
would
all the time.
suggest submitting the application at this time because we don't have many options right now. No, we
And-
haven't received any applications.
And what about the 2 empty seats we have? What's going on with that?
Those are
So
nominated seats.
I've been in discussion with the New America Media folks. There's potentially will be that will be repaired. So we'll have somebody sitting in that seat nominated in the next round. And SPJ has identified a lawyer, and they're just waiting on responses for a regular person. Yeah, they have seats. So one's for a lawyer and one's for a non-lawyer. No, it's Eric. They're waiting for responses on that one. So, but they have I think 2 or 3 people that responded. So they're interviewing. And the James Madison Awards, which they manage, is coming up soon too, this month. If anybody's interested. Okay.
Oh, sorry, you asked for Sunshine Week stuff? I believe
Yes.
a coworker of mine is doing something at the San Francisco Public Library on Tuesday. I don't think I have anything to circulate other than him saying I'm doing something on Tuesday.
It's not Peter Warfield, is it?
No, but he showed up at the last one I did. So, but no, it's he was a little both. Aaron Mackey will be the one giving the presentation.
Is it on your website?
I don't think it's on our website. Our event system has been busted.
So if it's at the library, it may be on the library's
It's
calendar.
probably on the library's website. I don't have that handy at the moment.
That's on the Friends calendar.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Okay. Anything else? Any other announcements? Yes. So move.
Second.
Move.
Get to the next item, don't we?
That is the next item.
But we haven't closed this
Okay.
out.
Okay.
The meeting is adjourned?
Yes.